Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. This is part 2 of the DC Spotlight for the week of July 27th, 2021. 18 DC books coming out this week. So Rocky and I decided that we had to split it up into 2. Remember we said this on the first part when people were talking about the demise of DC and Marvel was going to buy them and they weren't putting out any books. Well, 18 books this week, everybody.
Yeah.
So
part 2, over 2 days.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a different shirt.
Yeah, so am I.
We just ran and changed.
Yeah. So just a quick reminder before we dive in, everybody, this Sunday at Terrificon, I'll be hosting the charity auction. Go to twitter.com/the comic source. There's a tweet that's pinned right at the top. It has all the details about the auction, or you can go to LRM online.com/news/the comic source, and you can find the story there as well. All the details about how to bid. If you're there at Terrificon, we'd love to have you join us August 1st, which is Sunday, in Room B at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to last about an hour. Or if you can't make it out to Terrificon, you can join us via YouTube. And again, go to that pinned tweet, and the link for the YouTube live show is there, and you can bid that way as well. So we have a lot of items. I'm starting to think that we're not going to get through all the items in only an hour. So if that's the case, then we'll do some sort of online auction to get rid of, or not get rid of, but to auction off the last items that are remaining. There's so many good things. There's a Nicholas Scott original art page. There's a really cool Ken Marion, Kyle Rayner Green Lantern. There's a Batman from Adam Gorham. There's a Batman from Jimmy Palmiotti. There's some prints from Bernie Wrightson. It just goes on and on and on. So there's so many really cool items. And again, the auction goes to benefit a little 2-year-old boy named Titus who is battling leukemia. So go back and listen to the first part of this DC Spotlight for a little more details about Titus if you're so inclined. And we're really looking forward to everybody joining us and getting a big chunk of money to help support Titus and his family as he's battling cancer. I mean, it's ridiculous how expensive medical care is in this country. And, you know, you can literally bankrupt yourself just trying to keep your little boy alive. It's heartbreaking in that way. So anything that we can do to help, we're going to give it a try. So
it's a great cause. Great cause.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks to all the creators, so many great creators who have, donated items. It's they're not getting anything out of it. I just reached out and they were generous enough to donate. So we really appreciate it. All right, well, let's dive into the first book we're going to talk about. It's Infinite Frontier, number 3, written by Joshua Williamson. We have Paul Pelletier, Jesus Moreno, Tom Derenick, and Zermanico listed as pencilers. Norm Ratman, Raul Fernandez, Tom Derenick, and Zermanico listed as inkers. Romulo Fajardo Jr. handles the colors. Tom Napolitano does the letters. There's a couple of different covers. There's a Mitch Gerads cover. There's a Brian Hitch cover. It's interesting. We've talked in the past about these Infinite Frontier. It's a 6-issue mini, and we've talked about all these different threads that are going on and how they haven't started to come together at all yet. Well, in this issue, they still don't come together at all yet. We're halfway through, and everything is still on these parallel paths. Nothing has started to kind of bend toward each other. One thing we have seen, I mentioned it in part 1 of the DC Spotlight, is how the house ad in the back that talks about these different mysteries of the multiverse, those change this week, and they're asking different questions, and a lot of those questions that are being asked in that house ad are directly from this Infinite Frontier series and what's going on with Jade being missing. On the first page of the issue, we get mysterious dark UFO seen in the skies of Phoenix, and we know that that's actually the Black Lantern that is Roy Harper currently, Captain Atom from a different world, not from Earth Zero, exploded, and we see the crater there at the military base. We get DEO agent Cameron believed dead. She was in that explosion. And then what is the multiverse and why you should be afraid of it. and whatnot. And so again, just all these different storylines, all these different questions and mysteries to be answered. And again, they're all played out in this issue, right? I do really enjoy seeing Obsidian and Alan Scott, his father, fighting alongside each other, searching for their sister. Well, it would be Alan's daughter, Jade, Jenny Lynn, and Obsidian's sister. And I especially liked the double page spread where they fight up against all these sort of classic JSA villains. We see Cronus, we see Shade, we see Gentleman Ghost, we see Solomon Grundy, and it's just really cool to see these older characters, these JSA type foes that we Earth 2 type foes that we don't get to see that often anymore. But again, like I still don't know what the point is. Like, we don't know where Jenny Lynn is. We don't know who took her. At least not at this point in the story. And we don't know how it ties into anything else. So again, it's just all these disparate threads. Yeah. We get a cool Roy Harper scene where he does indeed have the Black Lantern ring. That's pretty fun. We get a continuation of the story that was going on with Val Zod and Thomas Wayne, the Batman from Flashpoint. And they're on the world of Magog, who is just as angry and sort of, what's the word? Obstinate, I guess,
yes.
as ever.
He's always a jerk.
Yeah, totally. We do get a really cool retro-looking story about Barry Allen racing with Jay, and they do a good job of making it look like an old school Silver Age comic, and that leads directly into where Barry Allen is now. You may be asking yourself, if you're reading Flash these days, hey, great, Wally West is back, but we haven't seen Barry Allen in a while. Basically since, I think, Infinite Frontier 0, if I'm not mistaken, where we know he got captured by Darkseid, and shades of Crisis here when he's literally running on a hamster wheel. It looks exactly like a hamster wheel. There's no other way to put it. And he's being manipulated by Psycho Pirate. So, I'm a sucker for Psycho Pirate. And then eventually Roy is brought aboard a ship, kind of like one of the ships that the Authority used that can enter the bleed. And he's being manipulated by Hector Hammond, who's no longer the giant-headed Hector Hammond, but we're told by Hector himself that when the universe reset after the events of Dark Knight Death Metal, that he himself was what did he say? Factory reset, I think is what he said.
Yes.
Yeah, I was reset to factory settings, is what he said. But he retained a bunch of the knowledge that he had as the giant-headed genius.
Yes, he's
Hector
much more
Hammond.
attractive without the big head.
Yeah, he looks much more normal. And they're out there to sort of, again, police the multiverse, very Authority-like, right? And they think that Roy Harper isn't qualified to wield the Black Lantern ring. And so they're out there to take that away from him and make sure that the multiverse is safe. And as they're doing that, as they're in the bleed where nothing should be able to harm them, we see this team of heroes show up, and it turns out that Jade isn't actually missing. She's part of this, I guess, another team that's out there looking to protect the multiverse. And I'm not even sure I recognize everybody here. Obviously, that's Pantha and Power Girl and Jade, but behind her, is that Adam?
I think that's Atom Smasher and Nuklon.
Gotcha.
The one with the big guy holding things above everyone
Adam
there,
Smasher,
I
right.
believe is Atom Smasher, and I think that's the Adams Nuklon is the other character, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, I thought Nuklon. I mean, I'm not familiar with this look on Nuklon. Nuklon from Infinity Incorporated had the red costume with the mohawk. Is this an updated look?
Well, he does, and I actually looked this up, and I tried to find a similar costume to that one there, and I couldn't find it, but the symbol is kind of like Nuklon.
Oh, okay,
and so
gotcha.
I guessed. I could be wrong, Jace. I'm not sure who it is. I know that one guy's... See, Atom Smasher and Nuklon are... The new legacy character, Nuklon, sometimes went by Atom Smasher, and
right.
So... that's why I really don't know who that other character is. I'm guessing maybe it's another legacy character, but I don't know. I could be wrong. We'll have to wait next issue when they talk to each other. Hopefully they'll say they'll use names.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So again, a lot going on in this issue, and really interesting stuff. I'm invested in the story, but I'm still asking the question. I'm invested because it's interesting, but how much longer can Joshua Williamson keep my attention if I don't start getting some answers on them? We don't start seeing these plot threads start to come together. I said the same thing last issue. So I guess credit to him that he keeps introducing these new elements that are interesting enough that I want to come back and I want to know what's going on. And I think probably part of it just goes to my love of the DC universe and knowing that this is a very important miniseries to set up what comes next.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. I feel sort of obligated to read it because I know it is so important and it's going to have long lasting consequences. If that wasn't the case, I don't know that I would feel so invested because again, it just hasn't started coming together yet. As far as the art, I mean, it's pretty solid, and I get that there's a lot going on.
There's a lot of artists, man. There's a lot of artists on this. Like, I don't know if there's too many, or what do you think? Like, in a way, we're dealing with a multiverse, so maybe we should get different types of styles to represent the different versions of characters in the multiverse. But I kind of miss the old days of one artist like George Perez, or one like Phil Jimenez on Infinite Crisis, or even just there was one artist on Final Crisis, more or less, and I kind of miss that. But it's not bad. I'm not sure.
I do too. They're certainly taking advantage of the fact that they have multiple artists, and that's how they are splitting it up, right? Like, you do this storyline and you do this storyline and you do this storyline. So at least the storylines, kind of look the same, but I'm with you. I would prefer if we just had one, because it's not that any of these artists are particularly bad, but I mean, they're all good. I should say, good to great, but I just would like the consistency, and they didn't pick artists whose styles are wildly disparate. The obviously the page that stands out is the Jay Garrick, Wally West sort of race, but that's purposely supposed to look old school. But there are some pages I think that are better than others, and I'm with you. I would rather we just had one artist. But what I will say is that their styles are close enough that somebody who doesn't pay a whole heck of a lot of attention may not even notice. And the other thing is, if I have the choice between the book being on time and having this group of artists and the book being late with one artist, I'll pick being on time, because I think it's important to keep the momentum of the series going. And we know that when things start slipping and start going later and later, that things lose their momentum. And I think back to, remember Marvel, when they did the Secret Wars, big giant, Jonathan Hickman thing, and it slipped so far back that they started releasing the new Marvel Universe stuff, Iron Man #1 and whatnot, before they even finished the series. And I just remember it slipped like 3 months. And the new universe, the new rebooted Marvel Universe already kicked off before you even got the end of that story. And it kind of gave it away, what happened at the end of Secret Wars. So you certainly don't want that. It's one thing to have a regular book slip or a miniseries that's kind of self-contained slip. It does lose momentum. It probably costs them sales. But when it's a series like this, or a series like Secret Wars that sets up what's to come for the whole universe, the whole shared comic book universe, I think it's really important to just stay on schedule. That's more important than having just one artist work on it. But it just goes to show how different comics are now. You used to have guys like John Byrne, certainly Jack Kirby. They'd draw multiple books in a month, and now these guys can't even draw one book. But the art is a lot more detailed, and things are a little different now. They don't have to draw multiple books to earn a living wage. That was part of why they did it back in the day. It wasn't that they wanted to; they needed to pay their bills. So anyway, I did enjoy it, but I am more than ready. I was last time I said I was ready. Now I'm more than ready for these plot threads to start tying together. So anyway, what were your thoughts beyond the artwork, Rocky?
Just a couple of things. I think that I'm a little bit more. I'm going to cut up a little bit more slack than you are. I think some of these plot threads are coming together. uh, for the most part, and I refer to at the beginning of the comic, there's this summary, an excerpt from the Daily Planet that you abbreviated earlier. But Jade is missing, and the reason why, and frankly, Alan Scott and Obsidian, they're going through the Rogues Gallery. They're beating up villains of the old Justice Society, thinking that maybe one of them is responsible for Jade missing, when in actual fact they discover when they talk to Shade that maybe it's an old villain of Infinity Incorporated. And for those who read Infinity Incorporated, Psycho Pirate is one of the old enemies of Infinity Incorporated, along with the Darkseid Club. And so that's a link to Darkseid. The mysterious dark UFO in the skies above Phoenix, that of course is Black Lantern, Roy Harper, who is being spoken to at one point in this comic. A mysterious voice says, "Come to me, my Black Lantern." That's probably the voice of Darkseid. We don't know, but it's probably Darkseid. So it's another Darkseid link. The explosion in the military base, that was Captain Atom from another universe. And he killed himself rather than being subjected to further control by a malevolent force that we assume again is Darkseid. The DEO agent Chase was believed dead in that explosion. And then, of course, the multiverse itself, it's referring just about how people remember the multiverse. Some of the other questions that take place in here on Earth 22 when they're speaking when Calvin Alice, President Superman of Earth 23, him along with Justice Incarnate confront Magog because they're following the fragments of the spaceship that Flashpoint Batman was in when he crashed on Earth 23. And finally, one of them says, well, maybe we should all touch the fragment of the ship, because Flashpoint Batman points out that we vibrate at the same frequency of the universe we're from. So maybe if one of us is from the universe that this ship is from, maybe it'll have some kind of reaction, and it does. And it reacts to Calvin Alice when he touches the ship, which makes him believe that he's got to go back to his own planet. Earth 23 was where this ship originated, which is interesting. Why did this ship originate in Earth 23 and somehow end up with Flashpoint Batman in it? And then it just does seem rather odd. Also, I find it interesting, just for fans of Roy Harper, it's quite clear that Roy Harper, when he utilizes the Black Lantern ring, he turns into a zombie and he kind of loses control. But what gives him control back is when he thinks about his friends, when he thought about Oliver Queen, he thinks about Donna Troy and the Titans, he thinks about his daughter, Leon, who he believes is dead. It's love that brings him back from the brink of the control of the Black Lantern ring. That, I'm sure, is going to play out in future issues, and that ultimately that love, that power of love and friendship is going to be one of the things that pulls him back from the influence of Darkseid and the anti-life. Again, I'm speculating here, but I don't think my speculations are that far out of whack that those people that are familiar a little bit with the DC universe, I think you can kind of get behind that. So I got to give some props to Joshua Williamson here. He's doing a good job. At least for me, I am being entertained. And artistically, as I said before, I would prefer one massive A+ name artist, but this works for me. I don't mind it. The different artistic styles from universe to universe, I think I can go with that. It's interesting. It's fun. I'm getting something out of this. I particularly love seeing Justice Incarnate in the house. I just love Captain Carrot and Mary Marvel and Machine Head and the female Aqua Woman. That's such a great team. We don't see enough of them, and I wish we get to know them. I hope we get to know them a little bit more in this series. There's so many characters here that I just know and love. And then at the end, I find it very interesting that or near the end, when Barry Allen is being utilized by Psycho Pirate to power up, like you said, it looks like a squirrel in the cage. What is he doing? What is Flash? What is he using Flash for? Remember back to the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, the Anti-Monitor used Barry Allen to power up the machine that he was using to destroy all the universes. Is this something similar to that? Is Barry Allen being used by Darkseid to create a machine to access the Speed Force, which permeates all through the Bleed, as I understand it, and all through the Omniverse? Is he powering a machine that he will somehow be part of his machinations to destroy the Omniverse or to control it and bring anti-life to everything? Again, I'm speculating, but based for a lover like me of DC history and lore, I'm really loving this. I'm loving these callbacks. I'm loving seeing Psycho Pirate's face as he sort of takes off the mask. He's clearly controlling Barry, and of course Justice League Incarnate Calvin Ellis and the rest of the Justice League Incarnate, they don't know where Barry is. Couple of I love when Jade shows up with at the end with what they call Infinite Incorporated. Now that's really, I find that really odd. It's kind of an odd name. It's obviously a reference to Infinite Frontier, but it used to be Infinity Incorporated. Now they're calling themselves Infinite Incorporated. It's kind of corny, I think, but I guess you got so many Justice Leagues now. We have a different Infinity Incorporated. It's Infinite Incorporated. It's fun, but like you said, there are a lot of moving parts, and I don't always get behind a lot of Marvel things because I'm not a Marvel zombie, and I can't get behind a lot of those X-Men events because I just feel too confused. And I would understand if somebody who's maybe more of a Marvel zombie and not too much into DC lore could look at this and maybe feel a little bit overwhelmed or not attracted to it. But I personally, I'm loving this, but I got a strong DC bias.
Yeah, I agree with you, and like I said, very curious to see what it leads into, because Joshua Williamson has hinted that there's another big sort of crisis level event coming next year. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. Uh-huh. All right, up next we have Icon and Rocket Season 1, Number 1, She Ready, it's called, written by Reginald Hudlin, pencils by Doug Braithwaite. Inks for the first half of the issue are by Scott Hanna. Second half of the issue are by Andrew Curry. Colors are by Brad Anderson. Letters by Andworld Design. The main cover is by Torrin Clark, and he's the guy that I referenced when we were talking about the variant cover for the Mr. Miracle issue that we talked about on part 1 of the Spotlight. And I said, there's another cover that he did that really caught my eye. This is the book. There's also an old school variant by Daryl Banks, who most people will remember as the artist for the Kyle Rayner run on Green Lantern. And then there's a new school variant that's by the interior artist Doug Braithwaite. And there's a really cool 1 in 25 variant by Raina Cayano, I think is how you say her name. So there's some really cool covers. I almost want
gorgeous. I love the covers. I love all 4 of them, which is rare.
I'm the same way. I limited myself to buying only 2. When I ordered these, months ago, and then I'll probably end up picking up the other 2 because I won't be able to help myself and end up with all 4. But this is I don't remember. I remember reading Static when Milestone came around the first time, and I remember reading Hardware, and I think Blood Syndicate was another one I read. But I don't remember reading Icon when it came around the first time. And he still had the sidekick Rocket, but it wasn't called Icon or Rocket. It was just called Icon when Milestone was around the first time. So I wasn't that familiar with the character when I dove into this. So what about you, Rocky? I think you had said before you never read any Milestone stuff before, right?
No, and to be quite blunt, I'll say more when you're done with your spiel. But I love the fact that this opening issue spoon fed me, because I really didn't know a lot about it. I absolutely am captivated by this origin. I know from just reading other reviews that being told what his origin is, that this is a rehash. It is a rehash of his origin that was established back in the day. But I'm so glad they started from the beginning, because I love this. What a fascinating origin. I just love it, originating back to 1843 Georgia, and how he has such a fascinating life, this Icon, and to him to intermingle with a modern day, a young African-American girl in Dakota City. This is really, I'm captivated by this. I'm definitely going to be picking this up and sticking with it, because to me, it's a very interesting take on a Superman story, but with a very different, I like the fact that it's a different race with a very different history, with this coming from a very, Civil War America. I find this really, really interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's clearly, inspired by Superman. This is the sort of the Milestone universe, the Dakota universe, whatever you want to call it, version of Superman, being adopted by some slaves back in Georgia in 1843, like you mentioned. And this guy not not inherent. I mean, he's not a baby when he comes to Earth. I mean, he appears to be a baby when he crash lands on Earth because he has the ability to shape change, and it really interesting what they talk about. Well, it's based on the premise that most intelligent species won't eat their young, right? So
Yeah.
as soon as the female slave touches the outside of the ship reads everything about her and gains her knowledge, and so it learns everything about the humanity and human beings as a species on Earth, and uses that to transform which is sort of interesting when you think about it, right? Because supposedly matter can neither be created nor destroyed, but he's able to go from a full-sized alien to a little baby. Maybe it has something to do with mental projection, and he's heavy, he's denser, and they don't realize that I mean, who knows?
Sure.
Comics, right? Um, but so interesting to go that route, and he's so long lived, and that's really that's the big difference for me. When you start talking about Superman, this is already an intelligent, mature being, so it's not like Superman in that Superman didn't know he was an alien, lands on Earth as a little baby, grows up with the values that are instilled in him by Ma and Pa Kent. That's not the case here. This alien has been around. They're a very long, very, very long-lived race from what we glean from the story and from other things that I've read in milestone returns and whatnot. So there are various times, and that's where he finds himself in the beginning of this issue. There are various times in this alien's life where he calls himself Augustus, or he's named Augustus by these slaves that find him. That's the name he takes. But there's various times where Augustus chooses to just kind of be a hermit. He's like, why should I bother helping out these humans? Because all they want to do, no matter what I do, it's sort of pointless. It's futile to try to help them better themselves because they keep falling back into the same old mistakes. And in his mind, it's almost like if you knew that the ants that lived in this particular anthill in your backyard were always fighting with the ants from the backyard next door, why would you care? They're ants. They're sort of beneath your notice, right? And that's sort of what he feels. And from that as a starting point, that's a very interesting and fascinating way to look at it. And then you layer on the fact that he's a person of color, just based on the fact that it was this slave woman, this African-American slave woman that touched the ship first. That's the only reason that he looks like he's a person of color. If a white person had touched it first, he would have been white, but he's not. And because of that, and because of the persecution that he sees firsthand by becoming an African-American, but by taking on the appearance of an African-American, he gets a different perspective. That's another layer that's added on that's fascinating as well. And then what stories can you tell possibly about his race, this very long-lived, advanced alien race that he's a part of? That can be explored as well. So there's so much here. When you think about Icon as a character, just fascinating to me. And I'm sort of disappointed in myself that why wasn't I reading the Icon? I read so many of them. Why didn't I pick up Icon back then? I'm not sure I have an answer to that question. So that's the Icon half of it. And then you add in Rocket, who I think Reginald Hudlin does a good job, not a great job. He gets a little tropey with who she is as this young black teenage girl trying to fit in, and maybe kind of dumbing herself down for the gang of boys that she hangs out with. It's a little on the nose. It's a little cliche, but the 180-degree turn that she has in this first issue is very believable, and I liked that about her. She clearly is intelligent. I love her thought process, and it does appear that, and again, I think like Rocky said, this is all very reminiscent of the first go round with Icon, just like Static was in the Static book. And I love that even though we're getting this modern retelling, they're staying very true to the roots of who these characters are. And even though the origin is the same, then you go on and you tell modern stories with modern, more modern sensibility and taking on modern problems, which unfortunately a lot of the same problems with race and inequality are the same now as they were back in the 90s when Milestone was coming out the first time. Unfortunately, we haven't come in my opinion, we haven't come far enough in 30 years. But I love that they stay true to the original beginnings of these stories, but then you're able to open it up and do, whatever you want. So in a way, it's very poignant, and it's really, you can't help but root for Rocket. That you think that she's able to get through to this alien who's hundreds of years old, and maybe persuade him to get off the sidelines, which apparently from what we see reading the story, that at various times through his life, Augustus, this alien, has been persuaded to come off the sidelines and get involved. But to my point earlier is, even though he's done it, he hasn't seen any long-lasting change. And that's why, once again, when we meet him here in modern times, he's once again just locked in his mansion, kind of letting the world go by, just waiting for someone from his species, his home planet, his alien race to show back up, kind of like E.T. phone home. He needs some help. Maybe he needs a speak and spell and some Reese's Pieces to build a communication device to contact his species to be picked up. But I think it's a good start. I'm very invested. I actually like this first issue more than I like the first issue of Static, and I like the first issue of Static quite a bit. The other thing I'll say is it's Doug Braithwaite art. So, most recently, Rocky and I had seen Doug Braithwaite art in the ENIAC series from Matt Kent, which was absolutely fantastic. Doug is at the height of his powers here, just as good. Storytelling is very dynamic. He breaks the panels when he needs to help sell that sense of action. Very detailed line work, wonderful colors, great storytelling. Reginald Hudlin does tend to be a little wordy, but I think it works in this context because it helps to sell the fact that both of these characters, both Augustus or Icon and Raquel Rocket, they're both very cerebral individuals. They're both very smart and intelligent people. And so I didn't mind a little bit of extra dialogue because it adds context, and it shows that they're very thoughtful individuals, very thoughtful characters. So I thought this was fantastic. Rocky, what did you think?
I thought it was. I love this. I also enjoyed this more than the first issue of Static, but I'm also a lover of history, and and I'm really fascinated by this. I actually don't know much about Icon at all. Like, really, I don't. The questions I have probably already been answered in his first series, to be honest. Like, I actually wonder, there was, when the rocket ship when they found the rocket ship that Icon was in, then there was some white settlers or some white farmers that came upon the ship. What did they do with the ship? Where's the ship? Does he have enemies? Where is he actually from? Does he know what planet he's from? These are questions that maybe that they've already been answered. I don't know. Why is he so inactive? Why is he's had periods of his time where he interacts with humanity more, but less so other times? Why does he remain so cynical for long periods of time? And then he's optimistic. This Raquel Rocket girl, or this Raquel will go by Rocket. She is clearly someone who it's very interesting how she progresses in the story. Her name is only said for the first time on the final page. All of her friends never refer to her by Raquel. They call her, "That's my girl. She is that girl." Even when they're in the same car with Raquel, they refer to her in the third person. Very disrespectful the way they talk to her. They never refer to her by actual name. These females are weak-minded, they say. As you say, it's kind of a little bit tropey there, but I mean, I suppose that's the way they speak in the hood. I mean, I'm not saying I don't know, but but it was clearly she's the smartest of all their friends, and she's clearly the most disrespected, and she clearly wants a better life for herself. I love the fact that she thinks of being a superhero. She knows that Augustus, when they meet him and he's displayed, they try to rob him and he displays these superpowers. She feels that he can help the community, and Augustus remembers somebody else from 1921 who reminds him of Raquel. And he says something in the final scene where he's thinking back to 1921, where in 1921 Paris, where he says that he references a time where going on a crusade, and he doesn't want. I don't care about your Bible, and I don't feel survivor's guilt, and so that tells me that he probably does. Whenever somebody says they don't feel something, well, if you never felt it, you wouldn't have thought to bring it up. So I think, I think that he's got a lot of guilt in his past. I'm guessing Augustus does. And this is in Paris in 1921. So I'm thinking there was the Tulsa riots in 1921. Did they flee to Paris after Tulsa? I'm just saying, are they going to incorporate history in this? I don't know. I'm maybe reading too much into it. But I'm really fascinated by this. I love it. I quite enjoyed this. And I want to go, like I said, I actually do have the trade on order at the shop, but I haven't got it yet for Icon and Rocket. So hopefully that'll come in the next month or so. My retailer never told me when. But yeah, I enjoyed this.
Yeah, I agree. I'm real curious too. I didn't hear a lot about a lot of people talking about Static, the first issue when it came out, other than I saw the writer Vita Ayala on their Twitter feed, just thanking people for the positive reactions. I didn't hear a lot of people, but I did hear a lot of people back in 2017 when it was announced that Milestone was coming back at DC, and it took another 4 years, and there's all kinds of legal battles and whatnot, and politics and whatever, and we won't get into that. But with the amount of people that were excited about it coming back, and even last year at the DC Fandom, I would think that I would hear more people talking about it. So I don't know, maybe I'm just missing it. But I definitely hope that if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, that you give it a chance, because it's a great story. And like Rocky said, you don't have to have any previous knowledge of Icon, Rocket, or the Milestone universe. This is just a good story. It stands on its own. So definitely encourage you to pick it up. All right, speaking of Static, that's the next book we're going to talk about. Static, Season 1, Number 2, Family Meeting, written by Vita Ayala, layouts by Chris Cross, finishes and colors by Nicholas Draper Ivy, letters by And World Design. And we finished off last issue, sort of a cliffhanger, when the bully from Virgil Hawkins' school shows up at his house. What does he call himself? Hot Head or
Heatwave, I think.
Heatwave, there you go. Yeah, he shows up because him and Virgil had gotten to a little bit of a fight at school, and Virgil showed him up. So he shows up and sets Virgil's house on fire, and that's kind of the cliffhanger ending where this issue 2 picks up. So what'd you think of this one, Rocky?
It's all right. I mean, I gotta say the art is really fantastic. Chris Cross does just an amazing job. Nicholas Draper Ivy on the colors is really, really good. This really continues the story, and I do find it fascinating. I find it interesting. There's this big bang that happened, and the big bang was this protest movement, and these cops broke up the protest movement with not tear gas, but with an experimental gas that gave a lot of the people at the Black Lives Matter protest superpowers. And this issue starts off with this another classmate of Virgil Hawkins, who is Static. Another classmate of his named Daisy is manifesting some powers. Meanwhile, this Heatwave character, another student of Virgil's, tries to burn down his house, but he runs out of power because a lot of these kids, they're still learning how to use their powers, and Virgil is one of them. Virgil then uses his static powers to suck up the heat and the fire, and then shoot the fire out into the upper atmosphere. So he does manage to save his home, much to the delight of his parents, who then argue, which I thought was very interesting. His mother is a doctor, and his dad, I'm not sure if I caught what occupation his dad is, but his parents argue about what to do with Virgil. His mother's a doctor and wants Virgil to get, checked out because she's concerned about, his powers and, what they could do to him. If, is this a healthy thing? Maybe it's not. But his father doesn't trust people. And this is where you really get into the African-American slice of life. The distrust of government, the different ideas that they have about, the mother grew up in a medical system that treated African Americans differently. That inspired her to become a doctor, but yet she still wants her son to get checked out by the medical community. John Hawkins, Static's father, is less trusting, and so I sort of like that snapshot into this family life, into this African American life, quite frankly. And I think this is very well done. this really interests me, and again, I think it's uh, I think it's well done. And meanwhile, Static, he's he's not really sure what to do, and so he ultimately ends up contacting Curtis Metcalf, who is the vigilante hero called Hardware, and Curtis Metcalf works for System Industries, which is a criminal sort of ultimately was a crime syndicate and Curtis Metcalf actually developed this sort of gas that ended up giving everyone powers, but he didn't want it to be released. It was experimental, and now he's being framed by his employee, this Alvin, uh, his I forget his employers are basically trying to frame him, and for what happened at the protest that led to all these kids getting their powers. But he likes
Yeah, if Icon, not sorry, not to interrupt, Rocky, but if Icon is the Superman analog,
right.
Curtis Metcalf is Tony Stark. He's Iron Man,
That's
basically.
right. Yeah,
He's just a out and out genius.
yeah. He is a super genius, and he's got an appropriate name for it too, called Hardware.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's kind of almost like a Tony Stark Spider-Man relationship in that, Hardware, just from a phone call, all Virgil has to do, all Static has to do is call Curtis Hardware, and then he gives him the code to one of his secret satellite headquarters that's all teched out, and and ultimately he ends up going there, where he is mistaken for Curtis Metcalf, because Curtis's Hardware's employer is looking for him, and they ultimately the police end up surrounding this storage facility where Static is in, where he was told to go by Curtis, and that's how the issue ends. It's interesting. Like this is the stakes are being raised. He's a kid. He's trying to fit in. He's got a fairly he's a fairly good kid. He's got the respect of his students at school. He's got he doesn't like he's some of his friendships, he gets along with the students. He broke up with one friend in this issue who he felt betrayed him because his friend was more interested in interviewing him for his live stream. And he's got a girlfriend. I mean, this is a good snapshot. This is probably one of the most well structured overall. We got snapshots of Virgil's entire family, right from his sister Sharon to his mother to his father John. And this is a family that's struggling, but they're working through it. And it's nice to see a family that through dysfunctional times is actually functioning rather well, given the fact that they're going through crisis like this. And so this is actually, I can see, people can read this and really get into it. This is a well-written comic. Vita Ayala is doing a really good job here. I don't know to what extent this exactly replicates the original origin of Static or not. All I know, I'm reading this for the first time and it feels fresh and new to me. So I can only think that's a compliment.
Yeah, it's just like Icon. It's pretty true to what happened the first go around with Static. One of the changes, the most important change, I think, and I very much like the change, and I think Vita Ayala makes good use of it here, is the fact that Virgil's family's still all together. I think in the original, his mom's a single mother, struggling to make ends meet. That whole trope. And I saw an interview that Vita did where they basically said one of the really important things to them was to have a strong family unit for Virgil to kind of go the other way with that trope, instead of, he comes from a broken home or poor family life or whatever. No, he has parents that are very much involved, that very much care about both him and his sister. And so it gives a different dynamic. And we see that here, right? Like Virgil's able to stop their house from burning down, which is great. But in that way, he sort of lets the cat out of the bag. He has no choice with his parents that he has these powers. And right, his mother being a doctor, she falls back on, hey, I don't want him to die. We got to have him checked out. The father, on the other hand, is saying, well, hold up. I don't want my kid to be some lab rat. You can understand both sides. Yeah. And I love the dynamic there, right? They send the kids out of the room and the parents are going to decide. white, black, green, purple, polka dot, doesn't matter. Parents are parents, and they're going to decide
That's
what's
right.
best for their kids, even when the kids are probably old enough to have a say in it, right? Maybe not old. Maybe Virgil's not old enough or mature enough to make the decision on his own, but he should at least, he's old enough to have a say. But no, these parents, they're gonna. And I'm a parent, and I totally get the instinct, right? You want to protect your child no matter what. So I love that aspect of it, and I love that neither parent was right, neither parent was wrong. It's a really tough decision to make. I see the point the mother's making. Yeah, we don't go get him checked out and he dies of something because he could be continuing to mutate. And the father's saying, yeah, we could turn him over or get him tested, and the government comes and takes him away from us, and he lives the rest of his life as a lab rat. Like I see both sides. So I thought that was probably the most interesting aspect of the issue for me. I did like the interaction with Curtis Metcalf. I was hoping for a little more than just a quick phone call, and then
Yeah.
Clearly Virgil's a very smart guy. So we'll see where that will lead. If there's anything that I didn't particularly enjoy about the issue, I didn't think the art. And I'm not saying the art's bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I didn't think the art in this issue was as strong as it was in the first issue. And I think maybe it's just because this is a lot of smaller panels because they really try to jam pack a bunch of momentum. And I'm not saying story, but a bunch of momentum, because I feel like there's not that many big story beats in this issue. We get the end of the fight with Heatwave. We get the argument between Virgil's parents. We get Virgil going to school and running into his old buddy Darius, who kind of fashions or imagines himself as some sort of Lois Lane type intrepid reporter and is trying to get the scoop because he's heard that Virgil has powers. Then we get Virgil talking to Curtis Metcalf, and we get Darius going and talking to this little boy who's the gas turned into this like little demon like guy. And then we get Virgil going to the laboratory, and that's it. So there's not a whole lot of big story beats, but there's a lot of little moments, and it's definitely moving the narrative forward. But based on that, again, it is a lot of smaller panels, and so I think the art, I won't say it suffers, but it just didn't impress me as much as the first.
Yeah. I will say I'll agree with you. I actually found the art to be really good. Until it got near the end, I was disappointed when he opened the shed and he opened the storage facility. I was hoping to see more of the tech. We only saw It's all black and it's all in shadow, and I think maybe they're saving it for the next issue. But I was really hoping to see like Darth Vader's bathroom or something, or Tony Stark say an Iron Man like layout. But it's all just dark. And like there are pages in this issue that are fantastic, in some of the backgrounds and like when he's skateboarding on the park there, he's standing there with the blue sky behind him, and he's talking with his friend. He's talking to Curtis Metcalf. It's a beautiful scene when he's skateboarding down to the dock on Dakota City. I think it looks amazing. Some of the muted backgrounds. I mean, the detail in some of these panels is really good. Even when there's nothing in the background, it's shaded and it's there's always something going on in the background there, even when there's nothing specific there. I'm actually, like I said, this is, I really enjoy this visually. This is the amount of talent that and work that went into this, and even the way he does his lightning, like when he shuts his friend, when he uses his powers to kind of wreck his phone. I love the artistic effect, how he uses his lightning powers, how it's drawn on the screen. It's quite unique. It's unique to Static. It's not like typical lightning. This is different than when you look at how they do Black Lightning and how they do Electro over in Marvel. It's actually got its own unique visual look to it, which I find very interesting.
Yeah, I think these artists, these collaborative artists, are working in sort of a different way than most artists do, right? I mean, you've got Chris Cross doing just the layouts. I don't know if those are physical layouts, or he's working traditionally, or if he's working digitally. And then Draper Ivy is finishing those layouts and adding in the color. So, he's doing more than just inking. he's adding detail and probably doing a lot of the background, like you were mentioning the skylines and clouds and whatnot. That's all Draper Ivy, and then he's laying the color over the top of it. So it's definitely a different way to work, just based on the descriptions of how they're describing this art. Layouts by Crisscross, finishes and colors by Nicholas Draper Ivy. Obviously, if I get a chance to talk to either one of them, I would ask them about that, about the process. But it does make for a unique look for Static for sure. So yeah, so it was a solid issue, but like I said, I didn't quite enjoy it as much as issue number 1. So all right, on to Strange Adventures number 11 from writer Tom King. Mitch Gerads does the interiors and the cover, along with Evan Doc Shaner. He's got one of the covers, Mitch does the other, and they trade off as they have the whole time, where Mitch draws all the scenes on Earth and Doc draws all the scenes on Ran. Now, we got the bombshell last issue that the daughter of Adam Strange and Alana is still alive. So I postulated that I thought for sure that it was actually Alana that had made a deal, and that she had allowed Aaliyah to be taken, because I just didn't see any other way around it where it wouldn't make Adam Strange the bad guy. Yeah. And based on what happens in this issue, apparently Adam Strange is indeed the bad guy, which, I mean, this is a good story and it's compelling and it's interesting, but at the same time,
you're frozen there. Hello? I'm not sure why you're frozen. Sorry for the glitch, guys. There's a little bit of a hiccup there, but we'll get right back into it. All right, Jace.
Yeah, I get to say I talked for like 10 minutes before I realized I get to say it all again. But no, I was saying that I was wrong. I thought all this time that it was Alana, and it turns out it really was Adam Strange. And I have mixed feelings about it, because Adam Strange, this hero of the late Golden Age, the Silver Age, good to the point of being boring at times, and he's this bad guy who betrayed his wife and lied to everybody on Earth, including all the heroes there, lied to everybody on Ron. Like, I just, has Tom King ruined Adam Strange? Like, what's going to happen in issue 12? How does this get turned around? I was so sure I was right. And I'm telling you, if I don't like the way issue 12 ends, I'm going to be hectoring Tom and be like, you should have done this. And he'll probably say, Jace, shut the hell up. You don't know what you're talking about. This works better for XYZ. But yeah, it's just, it's so emotional and so devastating, and maybe that's what Tom's trying to get at, right?
Well, now you know how Wally West fans feel.
Right. And it's not even that I'm an Adam Strange stan or something, you know what I mean? It kind of doesn't make sense. It made so much more sense to me for Alana to be betraying Earth. She's not of Earth. But yeah. I mean, there's so much here. When you start talking about Alana, the relationship Alana and Adam Strange have, Alana's talking about in the scenes on Ran about, feeling that Adam was her destiny, and despite any planning and swearing to her father that she wouldn't follow that pull that she felt when she met him, there was no choice, and how she's devoted to him and she loves him more than anything. All she cares about is Adam Strange. And then to our point earlier, we were just talking about, when we were talking about Static Shock, the love of a parent, right? If there's anything that can overtake that love she feels for Adam Strange, it's her love for her daughter, Aaliyah. And it's right there on the back cover, "To save me, you've killed me," is what she tells Adam in the story, right? Like, you gave up everything. You pulled the Mr. Spock. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. So he gave up his daughter Aaliyah to be a hostage to the Picts to save everybody on Ran and maybe to save everybody on Earth. We're not 100% sure. Like I'm not clear on why the Picts would make this deal. I'm clear on it why they would make the deal with Alana. If Alana said, you can have Earth, leave Ron alone, I'll give you my daughter as collateral. That makes sense to me. What deal did Adam make? Why would the Picts just say, okay, we'll take Aaliyah and we'll leave Earth and Ron alone? That doesn't make sense to me. So that's to be determined. But the fact that he betrays Alana, like there's a scene where they're on the snowy mountain and Alana's talking about everything they've lost because Adam Strange is like, we won the war. We finally killed the last 2 Picts that were on the planet. The planet's been cleansed. Ron is free. Why don't I feel better? We should be celebrating and fireworks and partying and whatever. And Alana says, well, because we've lost too much. And she includes that, in that loss, the loss of their daughter. And Adam just lies to her face. Oh, we'll get through it. We'll carry on. We have each other. We can start over, blah, blah, blah. All the while knowing that the daughter's not really dead, that Aaliyah's not really dead. I don't, like, why didn't Adam Strange take her into his confidence? I guess maybe he figured she would never agree to it because, again, it's that love of a mother for a daughter. So there's a lot here. Fantastic art, like, throughout. It's really impactful and emotional. I was so sure I was right, though. It made complete sense in my head. So how this is, I mean, is it maybe not Adam Strange? Is it an imposter? Like, I don't know. Like, he's totally rationalized it to himself. And when you think about it logically, again, you're saving billions and billions of lives, and all you have to do is give up your daughter. And it's not even that you're sacrificing her because she's not dead. And at some point you think maybe you can go and get her back. But I don't know, man. Alana, he may have lost his daughter and his wife in this by making this decision. But this is like character like irrevocably altering this character forever. If this is, considered in continuity or what have you for Adam Strange to do this and to have lied. And, there's already the question of if he's a war criminal because he's killed all these Picts. And again, to go back to the idea, what the heck did he give up for these Picts to make this deal? So there's a lot to unpack here, but mainly the relationship between Alana and Adam. Just, I mean, to save me, you killed me. I mean, that says it all. As much as she loved Adam, she loved her daughter more. And can she ever possibly forgive him? So yeah, there's a lot of, and then the other line that really resonated, it's on the back cover as well. They fed you 1,000 lies and you asked for more. Like, is that the saving grace of Adam, that he wanted to believe the lies that the Picts were giving him so much that he kind of betrayed his own morality because he wanted to believe what they were telling him when what they were telling him were lies. That would be a little more in keeping with Adam Strange. He's never come across to me as a particularly bright character, more of like almost like a Dudley Do-Right type character. So I don't know. I find it interesting. And if DC has let Tom King sort of, in a way, change this character forever, maybe they'll make him an anti-hero. I don't know. It's not like Adam Strange series sell, when they come out, they sell gangbusters. And why isn't there an Adam Strange monthly title? I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that this is a Mitch Gerads Tom King project, you hear that, Mitch? I put you first. Might not be selling very well at all. You know what I mean? So I don't know. We'll see how it all plays out in issue 12. But this was surprising to me that I was wrong about Alana being behind the whole thing.
Well, I don't look. Everybody, I was one of the ones I didn't like what he did to Wally West, and I remember at one time I wasn't the only one that sort of joked, but was actually serious, saying if you're going to destroy a character, at least pick a B or C list character, and arguably he did with Adam Strange. But I mean, I make a bad joke there. Look, I'm going to defend this story for a bit, and I'm sure I'm going to be in the minority because there were people that from the beginning predicted that he was going to crap all over Adam Strange. And as of this issue, it does appear that not only that Adam Strange, Not only did Adam Strange betray his wife, let his wife Alana actually cry, mourn their daughter. I mean, to actually to not reveal. I mean, good God, the death of a child, and not tell your wife that. Alana's not just a wife. Alana is also a diplomat. She's also from two worlds. She's not from two worlds, but she's also well versed in diplomacy herself and in war. And she can keep a secret as well as anybody. In fact, throughout the entire series, she was almost portrayed almost like a bitch, because she was in many ways, she seemed to be well versed in the diplomacy of war and peacetime, and she had suffered a loss. But Adam Strange does one thing extra here. He actually pulls a gun on his wife. It's one thing to lie to her about your daughter. What the hell is he doing pulling a gun on her? Like, what is he planning on doing? Shooting her? And she even says that to him. Like, what are you doing? I don't really understand this. I've read the series from the beginning, as you have, and in defense of Tom King, it was very clearly explained. Unfortunately, I forget. I'll have to reread issue 10. It was explained. The deal he had with the Picts was actually the deal that was made with the Picts, that we thought maybe it was really Alana. It was actually quite smart, and it involved trusting the Picts, and he did. Billions of lives were saved, and it allowed him to kill a lot of Picts in retaliation. And because of the nature of the life forms of the Picts, they didn't mind sacrificing millions of their soldiers to let Adam Strange kill them off, because they obtained some diplomatic victories themselves. And also, it has to be remembered that the Picts would not be able to defeat Earth, the Justice League. They wouldn't be able to defeat the Justice League, but they could defeat Ran. So all those intricate things in play. I want to give some props to this story, because Adam Strange is a little bit like Winston Churchill here. Now, you might think, that's Winston. How could I dare say such a thing? You got to make really harsh decisions in war, and Adam Strange is making it. And granted, what an a-hole for lying to his wife, but at the same time, there's definitely, if billions of lives are saved and there's still a deception at play here, there might still be a deception at play that we're not aware of. Maybe the Picts have a deal with him. Maybe he can't tell his wife. Maybe that was part of the deal. Maybe he had to wait till certain things played out before he could reveal the truth. We don't know yet until we get to the final issue. I'm probably giving Tom King too bloody much credit. I usually always do. But he says, Alana, this is not a joke. Okay, this is not a joke, yet he's pointing at her. It's almost like, does he want to say something, but he can't, but he's pointing a gun to her to make the point, to drive the point home. I'm not sure. This is either one of the most frustrating, disappointing endings to a story in a long time, or this could be just a really good. Adam Strange is actually interesting. The last time I read an Adam Strange story before this series was when Superman decided to converse and get the advice of Adam Strange about whether or not he should reveal his secret identity. And unfortunately, Adam Strange never gave good advice to him in that either. And unfortunately, we know what the fallout of that was. But in any event, when you go from that doughhead Adam Strange written by Bendis to this Adam Strange is not an idiot at all. He seems to be a war-hardened diplomat. He can make harsh decisions. He can make sacrifices. And the sacrifices he's making, betraying his own wife, this guy is hardcore. Hardcore. I don't know if this is bad writing Adam Strange in a bad way. I've collected DC my whole life. And I could probably fill a thimble with what I know about Adam Strange. I just don't read a lot about the guy. So, but I got to admit, this is kind of interesting to me. And I'm not going to lose sleep that him and his wife now have a bad relationship. But I'm glad that his daughter is still alive. Ran has survived. Ran hasn't been wiped out by the Picts. So if there's one bad marriage that it's resulted from this, one divorce and a pissed off wife, that's a small price to pay for saving an entire race. And that's the only defense one can come up with. Morally, what he did as a husband is unforgivable. But as a diplomat, it was one of the most ingenious diplomatic maneuvers that one could think of, especially when you think that the consequence, if he hadn't done that, would have been the extermination of Ran. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely interesting. And like we both have said, it's got people talking. It's got us talking about Adam Strange, which normally is not the case. So I don't know. In a way, when you mess up Wally West, like when I read Heroes in Crisis, I didn't like the fact that it blamed Wally West for the death of all those heroes, but I knew because it's Wally West that eventually he would be redeemed, right? They would figure out a way to not blame him, or it would get retconned or something, right? Because he's that important. With a character like Adam Strange, though, he's not important enough, I feel like, to erase this. So this could just be the stain that he carries. So,
Yeah.
and will anybody care except me? Who knows? All right, well, let's move on. Teen Titans Academy is next. It's from writer Tim Sheridan. Steve Lieber handles the art for this particular issue. Dave Stewart is on colors. Rob Lee is on letters. It's called Teen Titans Academy presents The Bat Pack in No Exit. Give us your thoughts on this one, Rocky.
This is actually a backstory. This gives the backstory to I guess the Bat Pack. This gives the backstory to the three students of Teen Titans Academy: Diego Perez, who is Chupacabra; Brat Girl, who is Marissa; and Lucas Laporte, who is Megabat. And what is interesting about this is that it's basically you find out at the end that the story that takes place here is the three students are telling their backstory. They're basically telling Red X their origin story, and it's actually right on the cover, you know. And one of the things that Red X does in this, after the Bat Pack tells Red X their origin story, he, in order to gain their trust, he reveals his identity to the Bat Pack, but we the readers don't know who Red X is. But in order to try to gain, what's that?
I said, damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, like, oh, the suspense is killing me, right? But in any event, it's the issue itself is called No Exit, and I guess the X is supposed to stand for, I guess, No Exit, Red X. What I find interesting here is this is really more of the origin of Chupacabra, because Diego Perez, the three students used to go to the Beaumont School for wayward children, I guess. And basically the administrator of that school, some children in that school were disappearing because the doctor at that school, Dr. Grussel, is basically experimenting on the kids, utilizing a formula that's similar to Kirk's Langstrom's research on Man-Bat. And what I find fascinating here is that at some point, Diego Perez impersonates his friend Lucas because he wants to get to the bottom of what's happening to all his fellow students that are disappearing at Beaumont School. And ultimately, he gets injected by this Dr. Grussel, and he ends up becoming sort of changing into, that's what makes him sort of turn into almost kind of like a quasi, well, like a man, like kind of a little bit of a mini bat himself, or a vampiric bat of some kind. And this Dr. Grussel is actually also infected and almost is kind of like a man-bat creature himself. And what it is it's a quasi super soldier serum intended to cure the disease of humanity. Like, this Dr. Grussel has a very twisted mind, obviously, but he's also infected with this formula. And it makes me wonder, because this Dr. Grussel is almost becomes like a Man-Bat character himself after he injects young Diego Perez with this formula. And then when Diego wakes up, he turns into this Man-Bat. Dr. Grussel does, and Megabat tries to defend them. And it makes me wonder, because we just finished reviewing Man-Bat in part 1 of this week's comics, and we know Man-Bat died. Kirk Langstrom has actually, had a very unsung hero. He had an unsung, he died. And I'm wondering, is this Dr. Grussel going to be the new Man-Bat? I don't know, but it's kind of interesting there. But in any event, these kids then eventually escape, and they escape with the help of Nightwing, who comes in with a dog whistle, and they incapacitate Dr. Grussel. And the dog whistle, of course, only dogs can hear it, or certain creatures can hear it, and it ends up Diego can also hear it because he's changing into this sort of creature, and it's fascinating that he has no problem. He doesn't seem to be traumatized that he's turned into this creature. He loves it. He thinks it's cool, and he gives himself the name Chupacabra, which is really an odd name, but in any event, Nightwing saves them, and Nightwing is so impressed with what they did, and these kids also, before they went, they also sent some evidence to Commissioner Gordon. Nightwing is so impressed with these kids that he invites them to Titans Academy, which is, and that's when their story ends, and then suddenly it switches, and we see that they've told this story to Red X, and this is where I get frustrated with this issue. Red X, then, he's listening to the whole story, and then Red X tells them that, well, you know what? Since Nightwing trusts you, I'm going to trust you too. Red X says this. And Red X takes off his mask. And then Chupacabra sees who Red X is and says, no way. And Red X says, the Titans have never shown this kind of trust, and they never will. Now tell me honestly, how is this school any different than the Beaumont home, than Dr. Grussel? As I see it, the only difference is that it's even more dangerous. Have they even told you what they're training you for? Red X is trying to manipulate the Bat Pack into joining him. Now, Red X doesn't have a school that we're aware of. Why would they join Red X? And I can't believe that the Bat Pack is that stupid. Because Nightwing, we've read the issues. They did tell the students why what they're training them for. To be better, to get a handle on their abilities, to become better people, to become better citizens of humanity, to help people. That's one thing that's been rammed home very clearly at Titans Academy. It's quite clear why they're there. And obviously it's dangerous, but given what Red X has put that Titans Academy through in the few issues that we've read, why on earth would they want to go with Red X? I find it astonishing. And then Chupacabra is actually considering the offer. You know, they contemplate, Marissa, who's Brat Girl, she right away wants to tell Nightwing about, hey, by the way, we just had Red X in our room. And of course, as a reader, I'm thinking, for God's sake, somebody tell Nightwing, you can't honestly be that stupid. But no, Chupacabra saying, oh, let's just take a second. Let's think about this. So I don't know if Chupacabra is thinking about what angle he can work or whatever. I don't know. But then to top it off, Nightwing wants to celebrate, and he takes the kids to the roof to celebrate the end of the first term. I mean, Nightwing has done everything. He has saved their lives. He's made their lives better. He's given them a home. He's given them their tuition. He's paid for everything. And they're questioning him. And then this Red X comes along, and it's just, I find that very, very frustrating. But you know what? Let's not forget that this same Bat Pack, we know from Future State, they end up being bullies to the young man who owns the Dial H for Hero, and they bully him and steal his H style. So this Bat Pack, I think they're bullies. I think that's what Future State shown, and I like them here. I like the characterization. I want to be clear. I'm frustrated, but I like this issue. I'm frustrated in a good way. I'm frustrated with these kids, but they're kids. And they don't always do the right thing. So I'm frustrated in a good way. I enjoyed this issue. I thought it had good characterization, but I'm also pissed off at these kids. But I'm an older guy, so it's okay to get pissed off at kids once in a while. But I enjoyed this, Chase. I don't know. How'd you feel?
I'm not the biggest fan of the Bat Pack, as they're called. These are characters from the Gotham Academy, which is a series that I never read. So all throughout I'm reading it, and I'm thinking, wait, isn't this Teen Titans Academy? Because it doesn't feel like Teen Titans Academy all throughout. It feels like an issue of the Bat Pack series. But they are students of Teen Titans Academy, and we sort of are figuring out how they ended up there. Like Rocky mentioned, with Nightwing basically recruiting them to come. And it makes sense that they would be invited to come to Teen Titans Academy based on the success that they had and kind of saving themselves and the other orphans. So it works as a story. I just sort of felt like, this is Teen Titans Academy the best place to put this story in. I don't know. I guess I'm still just a little frustrated with Teen Titans Academy because it hasn't been what I expected to be, which isn't really fair, right? I mean, the writer's going to tell the story that they want to tell, and I am coming around to being a fan of Tim Sheridan. I think he's done some really great things, particularly in the Shazam series that we talked about last week. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was okay. I am also frustrated with this whole Red X mystery. They apparently seem to be willing to drag it out, just ad nauseum at this point. We're 5 issues in, so I guess it's not even half a year yet. But we've also had him show up in a couple issues of Suicide Squad, and maybe it's just that it seems so heavy-handed, like you said when Chupacabra sees him. No way! Clearly, it's somebody that he recognizes. But maybe that's what Tim Sheridan wants to do. He wants to torture us with this mystery of who Red X is. But I guess you could even think about adding in the couple of issues of Teen Titans Future State. Now we're up to what? I guess that would be 11 issues, or no, 9 issues, right? Two issues of Future State, 2 issues of Suicide Squad, 5 issues of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want some stories about the actual students going to class and, that sort of thing. When I think about, books that are set in a school type setting, Harry Potter-ish, whatnot, that's what I want. And we haven't gotten hardly any of that yet. So still waiting. This wasn't a bad issue. I imagine anybody who was a fan of Gotham Academy probably absolutely loved this. The Steve Lieber art I thought was okay. I feel like I've seen better art from him, but it was fine in service of the story. So yeah, I just thought this was just okay. All right, up next we have Wonder Woman number 776, written by Michael W. Conrad and Becky Cloonan. The art from the majority of it is by Jill Thompson, and then Becky Cloonan does the last couple pages. Colors by Jordi Belair, and letters are by Pat Brousseau. So we saw Wonder Woman fall through the well to get to Elfheim, which is apparently where Janus, or half of the god Janus supposedly is, the god, half demigod that's been going around wreaking havoc in the god realm. And she killed all the gods of Olympus, which Diana was able to go to the graveyard of the gods and resurrect them. And so here we see her in Elfheim, and it's a fairyland, and all the typical tropes of fairylands where promises are binding, and there's a lot of trickery and lying and little fairies and things that put you to sleep and magic and all that sort of stuff. So Jill Thompson's style of artwork works very, very well for the story that's being told here, especially the fact that she doesn't use panel borders on her panels, which gives it, I don't know what reason it works visually, but it makes it feel more fairy tale like. And I've always thought that about her artwork. It's one of the things that I always notice about her artwork, and it works very, very well. So we've gone from exploring mythology to exploring sort of a different kind of mythology when we start talking about fairies and the fae and the magic and all that sort of thing. And it feels very classic, and it feels like it works very well. But what it doesn't feel like is it doesn't feel like a Wonder Woman story. So I keep waiting for this book to start to feel like a Wonder Woman book again. It sort of did for the first couple of issues of this run with Conrad and Cloonan, but I feel like it's gotten, and it's not to say it's a bad story in and of itself, but I find myself questioning whether Wonder Woman is the right main character to tell this story. And it certainly doesn't feel like any Wonder Woman story that I've ever read, but then again, Wonder Woman doesn't exactly sell well, so maybe they're just throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. So I don't know. I sort of have mixed feelings. Technically, it's well done. I think they accomplished what they want to accomplish. It feels very much like an old school fairy tale type story. And I think the art and the aesthetic are exactly what they want it to be, and it all works very, very well. even to the point of the dialogue and the scripting sort of feeling that way. And that's been how it's been throughout. The vocabulary and the syntax that Cloonan and Conrad have used throughout their run has changed based on what the setting has been. The vocabulary and the syntax here is a little different than the way everybody spoke in the last two issues when you're in the Graveyard of the Gods, which was different than when they were in Valhalla. So they're very much taking Diana on this trip through, mythology and different genres, and they're successfully doing that. But again, I have to ask the question, is this what they want the Wonder Woman book to feel like? Because it doesn't feel like a superhero book. It doesn't feel like a Wonder Woman book. Does anybody want this? Is anybody reading this? I have no idea. I sort of don't feel like I'm the target audience for this book now. Yeah. Whereas when it's more super heroic, I feel like I am. So I don't know. I'm just a little puzzled by the direction of where they're trying to get to. And so because of that, because I have no idea what the end point is or what they're trying to get to or what sort of the point is of this overall story they've been telling so far, I feel like I can't really judge on how successful it is. Is it getting there? Is it not? I don't know. The artwork's cool. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
But what did you think, Rocky? I know you must have strong opinions about this one.
Well, you held me accountable on the last issue, because last issue I got a little bit fed up. And then you reminded me of how much I like the earlier issues by Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad, and the art by Travis Morrow, which is really good. And I guess this doesn't really feel connected. When this, I keep going back. This feels so disconnected from Wonder Woman. Was the savior of death metal. She represented the best of humanity, and chose to die fighting against the Batman Who Laughs, and was all of the multiverse was rewarded because of Wonder Woman's sacrifice of all of us to die for something as opposed to live forever under the domain of the Batman Who Laughs. And so the cosmic gods rewarded Diana by restoring the multiverse and allowing Wonder Woman to ascend. Wonder Woman chose not to ascend and join the quintessence. Instead, she chose to come back to Earth to fight this lurking threat that we all know is Darkseid. But where does she end up? Well, Ratatosk, this squirrel, this messenger of the Asgardian gods, interfered, and so she ended up in Valhalla, where she helped the Valkyrie establish Thirsty Thursday so they could have a day off or something. I mean, a crazy storyline, but it was kind of fun, and it was clearly done. It's Wonder Woman is in the sphere of the gods, and so she went from Valhalla, and then she ends up going to the Olympus. Found out that this god Janus had killed all the Olympic gods. Then she ended up in the Graveyard of the Gods to resurrect the Olympic gods. And now she's trying to find her way back to Earth, where she can help and battle the lurking threat in the infinite frontier of the DC universe. That's what the goal is here. And there are a couple of references in Afterworlds here, part 7. Good Lord, Afterworlds part 7. 7 chapters to get Wonder Woman back to Earth. My God. I understand why they're doing it. They want to put emphasis on Wonder Girl. They want to put emphasis on Yara Flor, on Queen Nubia, on maybe Artemis and what's going on with that. I get all that. I just wish, they're clearly, they're choosing now to explore Jill Thompson is a great artist. She's worked with Neil Gaiman. I actually got a lot of her work. I met her at the New York City Comic Con in 2019. She's wonderful to talk to. She's very talented. Artistically, she's a gem. And this is a good enough. This is a good story. I mean, this is an interesting story. I'm not interested in it though. That's just it. I want Wonder Woman to be kicking some ass, getting her way back to fight the hordes of Darkseid. I want her missions, I want her adventures right now to be more linked with that is more in keeping with her heroic sacrifice in death metal. This feels like it should be in a children's book. Like this doesn't feel that this is the right. I agree with you. This doesn't feel right. But having said that, I would be lax if we didn't if I didn't try to properly review this. It is a decent story. It is actually, she's in the land of the fairies, and this king, the queen has died in the land of the fairies, and this King Gwyn is discovered. He's the one that actually had a role in killing the queen. But King Gwyn, right away, he puts Wonder Woman to sleep when he discovers her having entered the realm with fairy dust. Deadman shows up and warns her, don't eat anything and don't make any promises, because a promise made in the land of the fairies cannot be broken. And also be very careful because magic is everywhere. Well, it's clear that what happened is Janus, the god who killed all the Olympic gods, Janus fled through the land of the fairies and used Diana's appearance. So everyone in the land of the fairies thinks that Wonder Woman is the bad guy because she looks just like Janus, because Janus apparently took the guise of Wonder Woman when she went through the land of the fairies. Ultimately, Wonder Woman meets up with Siegfried, who apparently off-panel talked with Odin, had Odin plant a pin under a needle, and Odin said, find the needle and you'll find Diana. Again, more god nonsense, which drives me crazy in Wonder Woman. If the gods knew where Diana was, why not just rescue Diana and just, I just get so fed up with the mythology after a while. But in any event, Wonder Woman does end up, getting Siegfried. They end up defeating King Gwyn and his brother. She utilizes the magic this new lasso she got from the Valkyrie. So it's interesting that this new sort of this lasso that she has, it's which is kind of it speaks to her, and this lasso allows Wonder Woman to command. So instead of getting the truth out of people, it commands them to do something, and they have to follow Wonder Woman's commands when she uses this lasso. There might be a price that's paid for using the lasso, but we don't know what that is yet. It's hinted that there might be something to that. Ultimately, in the end, Wonder Woman does end up back. They do end up back finally on Earth with Siegfried, who decides to go with her. I say again, I hate to sound like a broken record here, but I can't believe that Ratatosk the squirrel is playing a part here. To me, this is I really do think this is an insult to Wonder Woman. That I want to take Wonder Woman seriously, because from the multiversal angle, this is a woman that has taken on Darkseid, has taken on the Batman Who Laughs, has snapped Maxwell Lord's neck, and she struggled her way back through the land of the fairies, and she's accompanied by Siegfried, who is kind of cool, but then a freaking squirrel, Ratatosk. I'm sorry, but there's such a disconnect. It's like, I feel like they're not taking this seriously, and they're having fun at the expense of the character, as opposed to having fun with the character and within the context of the larger story being told. And so while I love Jill Thompson, I just think that there's a time and place, and this wasn't it.
Yeah, it kind of goes along with what I was saying about, do they know where they want to go, and who decided that this was the way they were going to get there? And I can't help but think that, I don't want to make it sound like this is terrible, because I think technically, like I was saying, it's a good story. It's well put together. The art is great. It's scripted well. It's paced well, and all that. But when I say this, it's going to sound like I'm judging it or damning it as being bad, and I don't want it to come across that way. But I don't think this story happens under Dan Didio. You know what I mean? Like, because like I said, it doesn't feel anything like any Wonder Woman story we've ever had, and I sort of feel like the reason that they're allowing this to happen is because they say, well, Wonder Woman doesn't sell well anyway, so let's just try it. So I can't blame them for trying it, but for me, this doesn't work. The fact that this is even a Wonder Woman book, in the regular continuity, regular Wonder Woman book, this isn't some, Black Label or Elseworlds, or, this is the regular Wonder Woman book. It's so strange to me. So yeah, I don't know. She's back on Earth now. I guess we'll see. Maybe it's going to start to feel a little more traditionally like Wonder Woman. And as far as the backup story, God, I sound like a broken record. Young Diana, family ties. I am enjoying the story. It's starting to tie things together and make sense. But I guess the main story is so sort of fantastical in all ages. Like it feels more like it goes together with this backup than we ever have had previously since the series has started. But I still feel like this young Diana story just belongs in its own thing, which I think I did mention last time. I did see a solicitation where this young Diana story written by Jordi Belair with art by Paulina Ganeshaw, colors by Kendall Good, and letters by Becca Carey. It's all going to be collected into its own trade. So that's something I probably, pick up for my daughter because it does seem to have some pretty good themes. And we do get sort of a bombshell at the end here that supposedly the one that told the previous librarian to destroy the book that had the history of Themyscira was Queen Hippolyta herself. So that's a pretty big bombshell. But yeah, this is a situation where for the first time, maybe since I've been reading Wonder Woman coming out of Dark Knight's Death Metal or Future State, however you want to look at it, I probably enjoyed the backup story better than I did the main story for the first time in the Wonder Woman book. So, did you read the backup, Rocky?
I just skim read it again. I'm not, I think it is actually an interesting revelation, which really I'm hearing for the first time from you. But I just, I have to admit to a particular bias. I'm not into the manga style of art, even though sometimes I am. I'm just saying most of the time I'm not. And if it's a little bit too cartoony like this artistic style is here, I'm not inclined to. Sometimes I'm inclined to not give it the benefit of the doubt. Now, in fairness, there was 18 comic books we had to read this week, and that has an impact too when I'm reading that many comics. And sometimes my motivation for some of this stuff, what looks like to be a children's style of art, I tend to breeze over a bit. I like Jill Thompson's art, but this art's fine, but it just feels it has that young adult sort of fiction to it, and so I'm being unfair to it. I should have this does deserve its own its own collection, and I'm glad to hear that it's getting it, because this type of Wonder Woman story clearly has an audience. And I would suggest that audience, it's better found in a collected trade than it is in the individual floppies for Wonder Woman.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, let's move on to the next book we're going to talk about. And I think this is the final issue, right? Book 5 of The Other History of the DC Universe, 1981 to 2010. Anissa Pierce, Thunder, who is the daughter of Jefferson Pierce, Black Lightning. Stories by John Ridley. Layouts are by Giuseppe Camincola. Finishes by Andrea Cucci. Colors by Jose Villarrubia. Letters by Steve Wands. Cool cover by Giuseppe and Marco Mastrazzo. And then a really cool cover by Jamal Campbell. It's another one where DC sucked me in with the variant, and I had to buy both, even though I think these things are like $9 or something. But, it is the larger format of Black Label, and like all the John Ridley Black Label books of the other history of the DC Universe, you get a lot of. I mean, it's an illustrated short story basically. It's not a traditional comic. I mean, you get big chunks of text, and it's a heavy read. It takes a while to get through one of these. So, what do you think of this one, Rocky?
One thing that all these have been, these exposition heavy. This one deals with Anissa Pierce, who is the daughter of Black Lightning, and it takes place between the years 1981 and 2010. And to be quite blunt, a lot of this, I said this before, sort of off the stream when we were talking earlier, that this feels almost like a who's who to me. This is like I'm reading. It's like I'm reading a novel of the history of this character, and I find it very informative. Because it actually it sort of fills in the blanks. It reminds me of all the comics I've read, because I've read for a long time, but I've certainly forgotten more than I remember. And I like reading this because it's like, oh yeah, I remember reading that story. Oh yeah, I remember reading that story. Oh, I remember that. Oh, is that what happened? I forgot about that. Oh, I didn't know this happened. I found myself doing that, just reading about Anissa Pierce. And And then what I like about it is that along the way, what John Ridley does very well is that he manages to take the history of these characters and he flushes them out and he gives them more substance in with more modern day sensibilities through a modern day lens. And it really works. Now I focus more on near the end. Um, you'll have to talk more in terms of the detail of the substance itself, but this goes as about as in depth as you possibly could for this particular character. This is called The Other Side of the DC Universe for a reason. This does deal with the minority characters. This will get, dare I say the word, political, or it deals with the issue of politics, of immigration, sexual orientation, etc., etc. This one deals with her orientation, and it deals with her growing up in the family, her relationship with Anissa has an interesting relationship with her father, because Black Lightning was a superhero, and when he found out that his own children were Thunder and Lightning and that they wanted to be superheroes, he felt like a failure. I found that was kind of interesting that unlike Superman is proud that John Kent is carrying on the legacy. Black Lightning felt like he failed his kids because they had to become heroes because he wasn't good enough. He never made the changes that he felt he needed to change. And you have to wonder, is that because of the color of his skin? Is that because of the African-American experience? I ask that question as I read this, and I think it's very fascinating when looking at it that way, because Black Lightning is a different hero. And I know this issue has to do with Anissa Pierce, but it's very interesting to look at Anissa Pierce through the eyes of how she sees her father. And she thinks her father is a hero, and he was very good and a good man. And they knew growing up that their father was Black Lightning, and he would go, and they wouldn't always know if he was going to come back because he was putting his life on the line. And they couldn't tell their kids at school, their friends about it. But they were proud when they knew that Black Lightning did something that was heroic. But they still couldn't tell anybody about it. And then there'd be times they'd worry. And then with them following in their father's footsteps, it's really good. And following Anissa Pierce's growing realization of her sexuality, this it did work. I will say, though, that I think artistically, I felt this was, dare I say, maybe the weakest of the 5 issues. The art here never really, I don't know, it never really hit me as being all that, it didn't really stand out to me. It's not bad. It's just, it was just kind of meh. But again, I do like the layouts here. I like how the narrative style, all the exposition, there is a lot of it. The way it's spaced out on the page around the art, I think is pretty good, because there's always something to look at and to glance at in between reading all those words. So it's not like I'm ever, once you get into it and comfortable reading it, I mean, there is a flow to it. And yeah, again, it worked. There's a lot of people that don't have the patience. If you love comic books, you don't necessarily love, this is a different kind of reading experience than reading a comic book because of the extra exposition. And I know some people don't like too much exposition, but I think sometimes for characters like this, for minority characters like this, I benefit from reading this, because I have to admit that, and I know I'm just a white guy learning more and more as I go in my old age, but this is a really good series. I'm looking forward to collecting all 5 of these issues, or however many issues there are in a hardcover form, because it's something that I can see myself going back to and rereading, because it's a good history of the DC universe of characters that I love, because you learn something about everyone, not just the characters that are the subject matter. So what do you think about it, Jace?
Yeah, I think DC's gotten a lot of money from me out of the series. I think I've bought every cover, sometimes multiples of some of the covers. And I feel the same way you do. Like, I have a huge stack. It's only 5 issues long, but I'm probably going to end up with like 15 issues of this. And then I'm going to, like you said, buy a hardcover of it all collected if it's, presented in a nice package. I think, man, I'm such a sucker sometimes. But it is that good. I want to support it, right? Like, from the beginning, like a lot of people, I was disappointed when it got pushed back. Were we ever going to get it? John Ridley, super talented. And it has blown me away and has exceeded expectations the entire time. Like I said, this is the last issue, and it's very interesting and very telling that the series starts off telling the story of Jefferson Pierce, and it's political, and it deals with a lot of things that we're still dealing with in society from when Black Lightning was created in the 70s, inequality, racism, poverty, all those things. And here we are 50 years later. And like I was talking about with Icon and Rocket, we're still dealing with far too many of those same things. But it's bookended, right? Like in the first issue, we talk about Jefferson Pierce. In the last issue, we're talking about Anissa Pierce. And Jefferson, you can't help but root for him, and he's very sympathetic when you read the way John really presents him in the first issue. Then you get Anissa's perspective in this issue, and all of a sudden he comes across maybe not so great. And I find that juxtaposition being the bookends of the series very, very interesting, because it's almost like you're getting two views of, even within, the whole series is about getting a different perspective and different views of the DC universe, right? This is the other history. The history of the DC universe has seen through the eyes of minority heroes. And now, even within those minority heroes, it's all about perspective, right? Anissa is from a different generation of her father, and so her experiences are different, and she sees things differently. And then even her relationship with her father plays out very differently. The experiences of her life, because that's something that John really has done throughout, right? He's interwoven real events of our world into the narrative. He talks about don't ask, don't tell here, and this is she's a lesbian. She's in a relationship with Grace from The Outsiders. So when you talk about LGBTQ issues, that's something that resonates with her, something that's important to her. And so a lot of this story, as she grows and grows into her sexuality and starts to have a relationship with Grace, it starts to color the way that she sees things. Before that, she was sort of asexual in a way. She wasn't attracted to men. She knew her father because of his religiosity, is the way Ridley puts it, and just sort of his, righteousness and sort of the judgmental way that Jefferson Pierce is, and the stubbornness, that he would never accept that, that her orientation was different. And so she denied that part of herself, and Ridley goes into the exploration of that through Anissa's words, that I think a lot of people of the LGBTQ community can probably relate to. They probably went down the same path. They just didn't have relationships because they weren't attracted to persons of the opposite sex. And if they had a relationship with a person of the same sex, that's in a way sort of outing themselves, right? So they just deny themselves that relationship. And in that way, they're denying part of who they are. So I thought that was a very poignant part of the story and the narrative, and a very important part of who Anissa is as a character. What's so interesting is that, Anissa was a big part of the Outsiders, the version of the Outsiders that was founded by Nightwing and Roy Harper, and that's a big part of what the narrative of this issue is. And in that way, in her Identity of Thunder, she was a pretty big character, or at least she showed up quite a bit throughout the DC universe and in monthly comics and whatnot, from the late 90s through right up to, kind of around 2010, which is sort of the time period that this covers, and then of course we have some added stuff of Anissa's childhood and some contextually how she gained her powers and whatnot. But what's interesting is since that time, she really hasn't shown up much. I mean, she was in the Pride issue with Grace, but other than that, I can't really remember her showing up. And so what's so interesting for me is that time period that she was sort of more of a mainstream character in the DC universe kind of coincided with the time where I wasn't really reading comics. And then when I did come back, after 3 or 4 years, I was mostly reading Marvel stuff. So I really am not that familiar with the character at all. And so for me, this is sort of, like you were saying, Rocky, a who's who to give me a lot more information, a lot more context about the character. I find her to be an interesting character. It certainly makes me want to go back and read a lot of that outsider stuff that I had never read. So I think this is a fantastic series. I would, I sort of hope that John Ridley would do more, and I don't think it necessarily has to be from the perspective of minority characters in the DCU. Like and I'm not trying to silence their voice or say it's not important to get their perspective, because it 100% is, and I would be in for more issues of the other history of the DC universe with more viewpoints from minority characters. I would be totally fine with that. My one I'm getting at is I love this format so much, and this sort of expositional recap and history, and bringing in context, and bringing in real world events to give context, and to allow the characters to comment on real world events. I just love the structure of the story. I love the format. And so I just want more of this type of stuff. And if there aren't enough minority characters, why not bring in some other kind of B or C list characters? I mean, I don't think this sort of works with Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman, because they've gone or other Flash, Barry Allen, Wally West, those characters who have had so many thousands of stories told about them. And they've had kind of different. We've gotten different versions of them because they have had so many stories written about them that you have to tweak them, and you have to bring in sort of new versions of them from time to time, and refresh them so that you have new stories to tell. So we've gotten so many different perspectives, and you certainly couldn't say the Batman of today is the same as the Batman of the late 90s, which was the same as the Batman of the 1970s. There are subtle differences there. Same thing with Superman. You can't say the Superman of now is the same as the John Byrne 1986 version, and that's certainly different than the version pre-crisis, when he was much more powerful. And so you really couldn't tell this type of story with those characters, because their perspectives have changed sort of as the characters have shifted slightly to keep them modern and to be able to keep telling fresh stories with those characters. But when you're talking about characters like Anissa or Katana, or even Black Lightning, who's probably the most well-known of all the characters that have been covered in the history of the DC universe, especially because he had his own TV show. But even he is not well-known enough, or hasn't been around enough, or had enough stories told about him enough that he's had a bunch of different versions. So when you take these characters that are less well-known, it's easier to just, okay, this is who they are, and let John Ridley do his thing. So I would love to have more of this. We don't get the sales data like we did when DC was being distributed through Diamond, so I don't know how it's selling. It's certain everybody I talk to loves it, so I kind of hope that we get more. But at the same time, this did take a long time to come out, probably because it is so much work. I know John Ridley did a ton of research, probably read every comic.
It's impressive. It really is impressive.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he read every comic that these characters appeared in, and kudos to him for doing that, and then still having the wherewithal to write it. Because I remember back in 2015 or 2014 when I was doing, that was back when the Comic Source was still a YouTube channel. I wanted to do a spotlight on Harley Quinn, and I read every single Harley Quinn appearance up to that point. And I was so sick of Harley Quinn by the time I finished reading that. And maybe it's because I wasn't really a fan of the character in the first place, and I just did it because that was right when Jimmy and Amanda were writing her series, and she was blowing up, and I knew a lot of people would be interested in it. But I was like, the last thing I wanted to do was read more Harley Quinn. John Ridley probably read every appearance of these characters, and then was not sick of them at all. In fact, embraced them and wrote some incredible prose about them. Because this is really not, like Rocky said, this is really not traditional comics. This isn't word balloons and sequential art telling a story. This is really prose interspersed with some really great art. And I do agree with you that the art in this one it's not that it's lesser, but I feel like, I could go back and flip through and be able to tell pretty easily. I feel like this is the densest read. Like, there's the most prose in this issue. Like, it took me the longest to read of any of the 5. And so there's so much text here that there's not a whole lot of room for dynamic art. But the art that is here, it's beautifully done. It's beautifully colored. and it definitely adds context to the words from John Ridley. So I thought it was fantastic. This has been a great series. I'm sure it's going to be on my list of best books of 2020 because it was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
So
I would encourage any future writer at DC who's ever going to write any of these characters that are in these 5 issues of the other side of the other history of the DC universe. Read this series, because this should be the DC Comics Bible for these characters. Because I mean, wow, because this isn't just a history of these characters. You get the character of these characters. It goes
yeah,
in depth. I mean, it goes deep. And if you know these characters you know Anissa Pierce when you're done reading this. You know Katana. You know Renee Montoya. You know Jefferson Pierce when you're done reading those issues, because it's that in depth. And you know these characters, and it's hard not to like them, or at a minimum appreciate the humanity that underscores who they are and why they do what they do.
yeah, 100% true. You're not just getting the history, the events that have happened to them. Like Rocky said, you get their context, you get their personality, you get their emotion, you totally understand who they are. And it's so interesting that, like I said, that this is the one that has the kind of the most substance to it, because despite Jefferson Pierce being probably the most well-known, like I said, I feel like Anissa might have, as many or more kind of important stories than her dad, and it has a lot to do with the time period that the Jefferson Pierce stories were told in. I mean, 70s comics are kind of, read them, and they're just, especially at that time, Jefferson Pierce, the trope of the angry black guy, and there's not a lot of substance to pull from there, as opposed to Anissa, being created in a time where comics were much more of an art form that told interesting stories, and there's a lot of contextual stuff there to pull from. And when you think about the series overall, and you look at the issue that probably had the least substance, and it's the one with Karen Beecher and what's the other the first black Teen Titan? I can't remember his name.
Cyborg?
No, from the original Titans. I want to say Tyrock, but that's the black.
That's Legion of Superheroes.
Guy. Yeah. Anyway, the second issue that talks about Karen Beecher, and he didn't even have any superpowers, if you remember back in the second issue, and he was just, his name starts with, was it Mal something? Anyway, that second issue, they have the least amount of history or like sort of substantial stories told about them. So that one reads the quickest because there's just not a lot for Ridley to pull from. So
yeah.
Mal Duncan, that's his name. Mal Duncan and Karen Beecher from the Teen Titans. But again, it's the first Teen Titans team. It's not new Teen Titans from Wolfman and Perez era.
That's going back.
Yeah, definitely going back. So, all right, up next we have Wonder Woman Black and Gold #2. We got some pretty cool covers. There's the main cover by Terry and Rachel Dodson. There's a couple variants, one by David Mack and one by Joshua Middleton. First story is Without Love, written by Mariko Tamaki, art by Jamie McKelvey, lettered by Simon Bolin. Second story is A God with No Name, written by Chi Grayson, art by Corin Howell, lettered by Wes Abbott. Homecoming, written and illustrated by Tilly Walden, colored by Jordi Belair. A Common Motivator, written by Stephanie Williams, art by Ashley A. Woods, and lettered by Becca Carey. And then we finish up with The Acquaintance, written and illustrated by Rachel Smythe, or Smith, lettered by Becca Carey. Man, I thought the first issue of Wonder Woman Black and Gold was so good, and I feel like this one has a couple of interesting stories in it and some gorgeous art at times, but it doesn't live up to that first issue. And Rocky and I, before we started recording, we're sort of talking about that, how these limited color palette stories, our series, we've talked in the past about how it's time for them to probably go away for a little while. I'm sort of not a fan. They've been sort of done to death, but they're just so wildly inconsistent from one issue to the next. So the first story here by Mariko Tamaki, man, we've been reading a lot of Mariko Tamaki lately. I thought it was fine. It probably has the least amount of gold of any of the stories. Really don't use much of it at all. the artist Jamie McKelvey doesn't use much of the gold color at all. It's almost all black and white. But the line work and the storytelling and, just the transitions from panel to panel and the choices he makes to show action and how dynamic things are, it's gorgeous. By far and away the best looking story in the book. And it just reminds me how much I love Jamie McKelvey's art. I don't see enough of it. Because last week he did that backup in Captain Marvel for over at Marvel Comics for the 30th issue of that series, and that was fantastic as well. And seeing his art 2 weeks in a row, yes please. So yeah, I thought the first story was fine, but the artwork really brought it home for me, made it probably my favorite of the issue. What'd you think of this first story, Rocky?
Artistically, it's really good. It's beautiful. I love the fact that the heart is what's gold here. This is a story. This is the story about without love, and this is a honestly, this is the type of Wonder Woman story that I traditionally don't like, and I don't like this story. But I want to be clear: this isn't a bad story. This is just so grounded in mythology. This is what I just don't like. These are exactly the type of stories that I wish writers would stay away from when they write Wonder Woman. In fact, as much as I defended the Wonder Woman 1984 movie for what it was, the fact is it was a terrible script and it was a terrible story because it was grounded in nonsense mythology. It's just absolutely stupid. It was just a dumb script because it's like, wishing, whatever you wish for, you get. That's just dumb. And this, I'm sorry, this is my bias, because people love mythology, and there's some interesting mythological characters here. Eris, the chaos god, and I wonder if this is this chaos god or god of chaos basically convinces Eros to rip his heart out, and apparently when Eros rips his heart out, the world is deprived of love. So you may not have known this, Jace, but if you love your children and you love your wife, it's not because you actually love them. It's only because Eros has his heart in him. Rip Eros's heart out and nobody loves anymore. This is the nonsense and the stupidity of these types of stories that I shake my head and and again and then it's just so dumb. And then Wonder Woman, she takes the heart at the end and she slams the heart back into Eros. What? Yeah. It's just so dumb. It's dumb.
Sorry, it's a super cool visual.
What's that?
It is a super cool visual.
It is. No, you're right. And like I say, I'm being hard on this. I'm being harsh, but I'm just, I will fight for love's return, and this is so cliche. Come on, is there anybody on the planet that doesn't fight for love? Anybody? Everybody fights for love. We've gone to wars for love. Everybody fights for love. Wonder Woman, this is a cliche. Do something original. Like, this is, even in an anthology, I get it, but come on, man. Like, this is exactly the type of tropey stuff that, again, I guess I expected to see it in an anthology, and guess what? It's in an anthology. But in any event, it doesn't work for me. I don't like these stories that are grounded in mythology. I think it makes Wonder Woman look stupid. But just to be clear, Wonder Woman felt it was so important that we have gods like this around that she went to the graveyard of the gods and she wanted to resurrect all these idiot gods that cause this kind of chaos. Why? What is it really? Apparently it's because, Eros can never die, because if he dies, love will die. And this is the type of nonsense that is regularly in Wonder Woman comics, at least once or twice every 2-3 years. You see this, and this is what drives me crazy with Wonder Woman. It's not just in these anthologies, but in any event, I digress. Suffice to say, this struck a nerve with me only because of how frustrated I get with how, every writer does this. They want to tell a God story. You ever notice that you don't see this with Thor? How come Marvel, when they write Thor, the mythology stories are so much better? The characters are so much more interesting in Thor. It's because they relate to humanity in some way. It's because there's something, there's just more, they're more relatable. Here, we get nonsense like this. It just drives me crazy. Again, beautiful art, nonsense story. Sorry. I went on a rant there.
I think the North mythology that sensibility suits kind of American culture better than Greek mythology. Greek mythology
Yeah.
is sort of antithetical to American culture, I feel. So that might have something to do with it. But you must have hated the second one too, a god with no name, Chi Grayson Corin Howell. The art's okay. I mean, Corin Howell's art, I've seen very good art from Corin Howell. This is not it. I think her art needs color, because this art doesn't come across very, very good. And I can't look at anything in it and point to anything that's wrong with it. It just looks really flat. And I think it needs color to add depth to it. So this one was okay. Like Rocky said, it's more of the God stuff. So I don't know. Without the great art to kind of pull me through, I was just kind of meh, and it got worse from here.
Well,
But
I got
do
to
you have
tell you,
anything to say about this one?
yeah, I'm a big fan of Brian Azzarello's Wonder Woman run. I enjoyed that. That's one of my favorite incarnations of Wonder Woman, and his entire 3-year run on Wonder Woman in the New 52, the villain was the firstborn. And this is reminiscent of that. This is reminiscent of Zeus's first child, called the firstborn. Here, Zeus's first child is called the God with no name in this short story, and this ultimately this God with no name ends up preventing Wonder Woman from getting a cure to cure her mother Hippolyta, and she ultimately has to fight this firstborn, who is the son of Zeus, who was banished to the pit, to the core of the earth, and it took him 7,000 years to crawl out of the pit. And interestingly enough, at the end of Brian Azzarello's Wonder Woman run, Wonder Woman casts firstborn down a pit to the core of the earth at the end of his Wonder Woman run, after firstborn refused to be. Wonder Woman did offer to save the firstborn, but he chose to fall into an endless pit. But in any event, it reminded me of that, and so for that reason, I actually like the idea of a firstborn, a god who is actually a real jerk and evil, but at least he owns it, And I actually like that. I kind of like this, and I like the evil of this firstborn. I actually would like this to be I would love the firstborn to return, quite frankly, because I think that's one of Wonder Woman's better villains. But I didn't mind this. It ended rather conveniently. She defeated this god with no name a little bit too easily. But I loved the blood. The blood was gold, and as you said, artistically it was visually, it was very stunning, and I thought it was interesting how they used the colors, and yeah. It was okay. Good memories of Brian Azzarello's Wonder Woman run. That's what I'll give it.
Didn't Azzarello go deeply into the God stuff that you just said you didn't like?
Well, actually, I want to be clear. I've never the best Wonder Woman story has yet to be written. Okay. I said it's one of the better Wonder Woman runs. Gotcha. And to be honest, the reason why I like Brian Azzarello's Wonder Woman run is because the way that he handles the gods, the way Wonder Woman calls another woman a bitch. The Amazons are imperfect. They rape sailors for their sperm every 100 years. There's a reason why they got rid of the New 52 Wonder Woman, is because Brian Azzarello wrote Amazons like they should be written, like they're a little bit off their rocker. You can't have women isolated on an island for 3,000 years and expect them to be all sane and rational. They're not. They couldn't possibly be, because they're and how do they repopulate their species? Brian Azzarello dealt with all those questions. He dealt with Manazons. When the Amazons gave birth to male children, they drowned them, but Hephaestus saved the male-born Amazons, and the Manazons, as they were, ended up being helping him in the pit of hell make his swords. I mean, it was a rich and vibrant story that he gave, and he made it believable and vibrant, and he did a really, really good job in 3 short years. That unfortunately we had to get Greg Rucka back and undo everything and bring back Bambi and friends as the gods, and made the Amazons perfect again, and everything that just drives me nuts. But anyways,
so that was Rebirth Wonder Woman you're talking about.
Yeah, Greg Rucka's Rebirth, which
but there was a period of time between there where Azzarello had left before Rucka.
That's
before
right.
Rebirth
Meredith
happened.
Finch had a run on the title. with David Finch did the art where the
Yeah.
Manazons were exterminated and killed by an insane feminazi Donna Troy, and yeah, there was they
Yeah, I
tried to.
remember that.
Yeah, I know, it drove me crazy. Basically DC tried to undo a lot of the what they didn't like Brian Azzarello's run. They really didn't like it. They tried to undo
Yeah,
it,
I don't
and
understand
Rebirth.
why they. Yeah, I never understand why they agree to do the things and then then they spend years undoing them.
Well,
Heroes in
e-
Crisis. There you go.
yeah,
Why did you do it? Why did you give it editorial approval if you're going to spend the next 3 years undoing it?
yeah.
Makes no sense.
Everybody loves George Perez's run, and I think it's high. I love George Perez. He's my favorite artist, but I think his Wonder Woman run, while it showed love for the character, I just thought I didn't appreciate his interpretation of the character
Yeah,
personally. But
too grounded in the gods.
eh, well, I really do think that she's too beholden to her gods. She supplicates herself too much. Wonder Woman gets on her knees too much. She forgives the gods too much. She worships them too much. She puts the gods above humanity too much. Uh, and then she'll pull back and do something from like, and it's and there's examples of that in this anthology. There's examples of that, even what she's doing right now. I mean, why doesn't she go to the ends of the earth to resurrect dead humans? She'll do it for gods, but she won't do it for humans. I mean, there's so much hypocrisy in her actions, it drives me crazy. And that story addressing the hypocrisy has yet to be written. And when it does, and when it is written, that will be the one of the better Wonder Woman stories written. In my,
If it's done well.
sure, of course, but I'm very opinionated when it comes to Wonder Woman. So sorry.
Yeah. Oh, what did you think of the next story in here? Homecoming by Tilly Walden, script and art. Jordy Belair does colors.
Uh,
There's
sorry.
one word, 2 words throughout the entire story. Wonder
What
Woman is dreaming. I didn't, uh, I didn't get much out of this.
I didn't
Wonder Woman loves
understand
her
it either.
mom,
What is she actually dreaming? She's dreaming that she's on Paradise Island and then floating
and
back.
then gets pulled under the water and apparently drowns almost, but then is allowed to come back. But she's a young girl, a little girl when she comes back. Travels through Hades, ends up in a forest, runs into her mother. Her mother kisses her,
Yeah.
and then she turns back into Wonder Woman and wakes up. I okay, I don't get it.
I really don't either. This is about maybe she misses. It was this written at a time. There was a time when Hippolyta was dead, and maybe she's just remembering her mother, and she's just dreaming about her mother. She seems to wake up in a cold sweat, or she's sweating. It looks like. I don't know. I don't really understand this. I mean, this is a very stylized art. It's not my cup of tea. But if this story had more context, maybe I'd appreciate it more. But I, it's just Wonder Woman having a dreaming about her mom. So I don't know. Maybe it's very Freudian. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely did. I guess I wasn't smart enough to understand that one. The next one seems like it would be right up your alley. A common motivator. Stephanie Williams writes it. Ashley A. Woods is the artist. I'm not familiar with Ashley A. Woods, but the art here is spectacular, and it's basically a story that's sort of as classic to the Amazons as you can get, with Artemis and one of her tribe against Wonder Woman and Nubia in like an obstacle course type competition. So this rang very true to me. I thought it was pretty well done. If it ended up being a little, I don't know what the word is. Basically, at the end, Hippolyta says, earlier she had said, "Oh, the good thing about Nubia and Diana is they're both so keen on outwitting each other. It brings out the best in each other." And then I guess it gets a little petty at the end when Hippolyta says, "I was wrong. Actually, it's the fact that Nubia and Diana dislike Artemis so much. It's the dislike of Artemis that they could not possibly allow themselves to be defeated by Artemis and her partner." So I thought
Yeah.
that was a little petty, but I don't know. It does
Yeah.
feel classically Amazonian.
Yeah, I agree, and hence Artemis being the common motivator, and
Yeah,
you know that's one of the things that Wonder Woman, and again, it's one of the mistakes that writer after writer makes when they write Wonder Woman, is that they're so bloody afraid to give Wonder Woman flaws. It is a huge mistake. Wonder Woman, I mean, I'm sorry, but she can be petty once in a while. She can get upset once in a while. Let her get upset. Let her not like somebody. Let her like, you know, she doesn't have to be perfect all the time. You know, it's very hard to relate to Wonder Woman. There's the relatability factor is one of the reasons why do you think so many people love Yara Flor? It's because Yara Flor is impulsive. Yara Flor, you know, will hit first, ask questions later. And we've only got like 5 or 6 issues of Yara Flor. But it's so refreshing to see in Amazon, to see a Wonder Woman-like character not be just always so kind and loving and perfect all the time and beholden to gods and supplicating, or like, just, you know, I like to see a little bit of she needs more of the warrior aspect in her, and that's clearly where my bias lies, but that's where the interest lies too, because, you know, part of any hero's journey is you got to focus on the mistakes before you can appreciate the redemption and the obstacle that's overcome at the end. And too often Wonder Woman is just all the obstacles, she always seems to overcome them because of her perfection, as opposed to actually you know, doing anything. You know, the Wonder Woman 1984 movie is a prime example of that. I mean, talking your way out of a situation. I mean, don't even get me started. But in any event, but yeah, we should get out of this Wonder Woman. I'm going to rant all day here. But
Well, one more story. The Acquaintance, story and art by Rachel Smythe, Becca Carey. So if you're not familiar with Rachel, she writes the most popular webcomic in the world. It's read by millions and millions of people.
oh, really? What's that?
Yeah, it's called Lore Olympus. It's on Webtoon. It's been optioned to become a cartoon, and
Oh,
yeah,
that's awesome.
it's very, very popular. It's a romance story about like a soap opera. It's very much a soap opera with backstabbing and betrayals and whatnot. And it does use, you know, Greek gods, Hades, and that sort of thing. So she's a good choice to write Wonder Woman. And her I don't know that her art, I think it works for her characters. I don't know that it works the best here with Wonder Woman and Cersei. To me, Cersei should be attractive, and she looks pretty homely here. That's part of Cersei's ability to sort of charm people. But I do sort of like her version of Superman. So I thought this one was okay. Basically, Cersei has tricked Superman and turned him into a mouse, and Wonder Woman has to go and rescue him. So, but it's fun. It's lighthearted. If you like the story and the sensibility, I definitely would encourage you to go check out Lore Olympus. You know, Webtoon, it's a free platform. You can go and download it and read the digital comics there. So yeah, I thought it was good.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't really have much to add. Artistically, it has a unique style. It's good. You know, it's actually it has almost like a lyrical sort of humorous style to it, if that makes any sense. It's actually I find it normally I'm turned off by the style that I would think I'd be turned off by the style of art, but you know, as you say, it does have a sort of a satirical sort of tone to it. So I could see myself, you know, I'll have to check her. I'll have to check her work out. I did not know that about her. That's interesting.
Yep. Next issue, we get Janet Harvey and Megan Levins doing a story. Robert Venditti with Steve Epting. That sounds very intriguing. Paula Sevenbergen and Anaki Miranda. Then Peter J. Tomasi and Christian Alame, and Amy Garcia and Sebastian Fumara. So, yeah, for me, that Venditti Epting story stands out as a possible winner. I'm a big fan of both those guys. So, all right, on to the last book we're going to talk about, Superman, Son of Kal-el, #1. A lot of people anticipating this. It's written by Tom Taylor. The artist is John Timms. Gabe Eltab is the colorist. Dave Sharp on letters. Yeah, like I said on part 1, once you release this book, Superman, Son of Kal-el, it's going to be really hard to put the genie back in the bottle, and kind of the nail in the coffin on John Kent ever being 11 years old again in the comics, forever 17, I guess. So what'd you think, Rocky?
You know, this was Well, look, I love Tom Taylor, but let's make no mistake. This was a comic book that was very generic. This was generic. This was safe. No chances were being made with it. This was derivative. The art was mediocre at best. Um, who does John Kent want to be? He doesn't know. The reader doesn't know. What are his plans? He doesn't know. The reader doesn't know. He wants truth, justice, and a better world. Well, don't we all? Really? Really? Again, generic, one-dimensional, boring, completely lacking in substance. But let's be blunt. Let's be very blunt here. It has to lack substance. Why? Because this is Superman, son of Kal-el. And really, what do we know about him? We don't know much of anything. He was aged up very quickly. The best thing about it is his variant cover by Jen Bartel. I mean, he's son of Kal-el. I mean, he's a very attractive young man. Unfortunately, what is he going to do? I do like the fact that we got a new origin for him because, he was born during an alien invasion. And there were some cool moments here that Tom Taylor's really good at scripting.
An attempted alien invasion. That point is made over and over. An attempted alien invasion.
That's right. And it has to be an attempted alien invasion in order to emphasize the fact that that's not the focus of the story. It's, of course, it's the birth of John Kent. And, there are some really great moments here. I mean, very good moments. The Justice League, they want Superman. Superman, let us handle this. We got this. Go. You got a more important thing you got to worry to go focus on. And of course, that's the birth of his son. Batman, I mean, can you get more appropriate? Batman at the Fortress of Solitude. Wonder Woman inside at Lois Lane's side as she's giving birth to what Wonder Woman rightly describes will potentially be the greatest child born in the next generation of heroes and going into the future. And Lois Lane makes some jokes. I mean, Tom Taylor, great with dialogue. Lois Lane jokes, because they're talking about her almost like she's not in the room. And there's some wonderful moments here. I think artistically this suffered. I think these moments should have been drawn by a better artist. I'll be blunt. I'm not a fan of John Timms. I didn't like his work on Future State. I think he's the wrong choice of artist for this comic, and I think it's really unfortunate. But he does to his credit. He does have some really good pages here. There's a beautiful page here with Lois and Clark holding young John Kent. And Batman and Wonder Woman talking outside the cave, talking about, about conducting tests on the child and all the stuff you'd kind of expect. Tom Taylor has to start at the beginning here. So as much as I know I started off sounding like a real cynical bastard talking about this, this really was a good opening issue. It was. It just was. For us who've been following John Kent from the beginning, this is very generic. But it has to start somewhere. And even this, like there's a scene where there's a fire, fires in California. John Kent is helping the firefighters out. Apparently the fires are caused by this one, I guess it's almost like a mutant. There's this individual mutant or this metahuman that is so stressed, and when he gets stressed, he blows up and he turns into a Human Torch-like character. And John Kent calms him down because he figures out that his stress levels when his heartbeat increases his fire output. So he calms him down and he asks the military, he gives the kid to the military saying, just be mindful that this guy has anxiety, treat him well. The military knocks him out and John Kent gets really upset, and the military man rightly tells John Kent, you want to piss off the military here? We're the authority. I side with the military on this one. Obviously, you're going to knock out a domestic terrorist, whether he's responsible for his actions or not. He's a danger to society. John Kent's naivete really shines through here, but so does his compassion. I'm going to give Tom Taylor some credit here that I think John Kent is as perfectly naive as a lot of teenagers should be. When you're 17, 18 years old, how many people really know what they want to do with their life? John Kent, unfortunately, and this is why I hate to say this, but I really do find him probably next to Wonder Woman. John Kent is probably one of the most uninteresting characters in the DC universe right now. What is he going to have? Is he going to have a secret identity? He can't have a secret identity. He's talking with Damian later, and as he points out to Damian, everybody knows who I am. Why does everybody know who John Kent is? That John Kent is Superboy? Because his father was stupid enough to reveal his secret identity. In one of the most dumbfounded moves ever, in addition to the aging up. But that's what we're left with. So what is John Kent going to do? Is John Kent going to get a job? I mean, even Wally West got a job with Mr. Terrific. What's John Kent going to do? How is he going to make a living? What is he going to do? Is he just going to help? How does he make a living? How does he make money? I know he doesn't need to eat, but where's he going to live? Is he going to live at the fortress? And if he is, I'm already thoroughly uninterested in John Kent. What is he actually going to do? Clark Kent, Superman, that dichotomy is interesting. Why should I be interested in John Kent? And this is what I'm looking to Tom Taylor. And by the way, I want to be fair to Tom Taylor. I think any writer, I don't know what the hell Tom Taylor is going to do. But I got to tell you that maybe you'll have some really great plot points, but if all you're going to do is distract me with a bunch of adventures for John Kent, that's missing the point. I want to know who John Kent is as a human being. If all this is going to be about is the House of El, and John Kent's going to grow up and we're going to have a bunch of little super kids and we're all going to fly around wearing an S on our soldiers like we're gods flying around the planet Earth. That is so not the Superman I'm interested in. I want a grounded Superman. I don't want the future House of El. I hate that. I want a grounded Superman. I want one with a secret identity. I want his children to have secret identities, to live and to help people and to not reveal themselves so they can fly around and be kings like John Kent flying around, questioning the military, undoubtedly violating sovereignty of nations. And, he's going to what? He's going to be more proactive. He's going to follow Damian's advice. Be the cure. Be the cure. I would suggest that John Kent should maybe look at his father's own history instead of worrying about his father's future maybe dying. Look at your father's history. Go and interfere in other nations. There's a reason why your father can't cure all of Earth's problems. It's because one person, one super person can't do it. But hey, he's young and stupid, and but he's naive, and he's going to figure out that he's wrong if the stories are written properly. He's going to figure out that he's wrong and that he can't do it and that humanity has to do it for themselves. And you can be an example, but you can't do the work yourself. If you insist on doing the work yourself, you will become the villain. And since that was at one point, arguably, even the Spectre in Infinite Frontier Zero even speculated to Wonder Woman, who was on the road to ascension. Spectre speculated that, we should watch out for John Kent. He's a potential villain. He's a potential villain in the making. And Wonder Woman said, no, look at all the good that he did. And John Kent rose to the occasion and saved an alien race and everything else. But I'm frustrated with this. But it's not Tom Taylor's fault. Tom Taylor's done as good a job as I can expect. But I just don't know, how much can he really work with here? What is he allowed to even do with this character? I mean, what can he really do with this character? He's not going to go to school. He's not going to go to college. What is he going to do? I mean, these are the questions I have. And I'd be really curious to know what Tom Taylor's answer to this is. But if all he's going to do is join the Justice League, join a super team, fly around. I mean, when's the last time we saw John Kent wear normal clothes? Just like a human being.
Couldn't tell you.
I mean, exactly. The Super Sons, we saw young John Kent wear normal clothes all the time. And now, I don't know, I'm really, really worried about this. I'm really worried about this because I don't like, initially, when I think about a character, I get excited about a character. And I imagine to myself, I want him to do this, I want him to do that. I got nothing when I think of John Kent. I got nothing. I got nothing. I don't even know if I like this kid. And I think, and I'm trying to forget about the 7-year age up. Okay. So assuming that never happened and he's a well-adjusted kid, okay, what about him? Why should I care? I haven't got an answer to that yet. And in fairness to Tom Taylor, it's only one issue in, but I'm absolutely in for the long haul here. I'm going to give Tom Taylor a lot of rope because he's earned it. And we'll see where it goes. And sorry for being so long-winded there, but I don't know, Jace. Are you more optimistic than I am? Am I too cynical? What? I don't know.
I don't know. I have mixed feelings. First of all, the art. Yeah, I sort of agree with you. This John Tim's art is leaps and bounds better than what we got in Future State. It's not as busy. He gives the story room to breathe when he needs to, but there are just little inconsistencies that bug me. He does that thing like that Brandon Peterson does, where in certain panels he outlines the entire character with a colored line.
Yeah.
And it's especially noticeable on the very last page where John's in space, even to the point of outlining the holes in his cape with blue. And it's so off-putting to me. So I don't like that. And why does John look like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? Why is his nose all red at the end of that? Like in that
it's
last
cold in
page,
space.
What? Yeah. Tim's, especially faces, he struggles a little bit. There are moments where it should shine, and it doesn't necessarily. So that being said, the color work is done really, really well, and I think the page layouts are done reasonably well. And you do feel the action, and there's impact in some of the scenes against when John's fighting the fire and whatnot. And so all that sort of works for me. But I mean, I can sort of tell you everything you need to know about John Kent really simply in terms of, who is this guy and where his head's at. He doesn't know if he's done the right thing with this mutant, as Rocky referred to him, by giving him over to the U.S. military. He doesn't know what his place is, be the cure or whatever. What does that mean? He has all this power and he could affect real change, but he's nervous to use it. He's worried about overstepping and looking like he's some sort of despot, and he's making decisions for humanity, and he wants some advice. And who does he go to for advice? Damien. That tells you right there everything you need to know about John Kent. Those 7 years, he did not learn anything. I feel like maturity-wise, intelligence-wise, he's still 11 years old.
Yeah, but Ultraman is such a good father figure, though.
Right? Yeah. So he still sees Damien as more knowledgeable than him. It's like, what are you doing? And I just recently saw something, and maybe it was from the Comic-Con at home, where Tom Taylor was talking about how the age gap's the same. Like it used to be Damien was 3 years older, and now John's 3 years older than Damien. So the gap is still 3 years old. I got to say, one of the worst things about John Tim's art, they look the same age. Damien looks just as old. Damien does not look 14 here.
Yeah, he looks older.
Yeah, he looks way older. And I do sort of like after reading this issue, you know what I wish? First of all, I love the costume that John Timms puts Damien in. It doesn't look reminiscent of his Robin costume at all. I love that. The colors especially. I love the characterization that Tom Taylor gives Damien. I wish Tom Taylor was writing Robin and that this Superman Son of Kal-el book didn't even exist. That would be like the best solution here, because I love the way he writes Damien. And like he writes Damien, he's still arrogant. He still thinks he has all the answers, but he's not out and out unlikable the way Joshua Williamson writes him. We talked about that on the part 1 when we talked about Robin number 4, how it feels like Joshua Williamson has de-evolved Damien, and it feels like Tom has Damien in the right place. He acts like a 14-year-old. He thinks he knows more than he does. You can't hold that against him, as opposed to the outright unlikable character that Joshua Williamson has turned him into or regressed him to. But that's neither here nor there when we want to talk about John Kent. Getting back to what I was saying, he goes to Damien for advice. This is not the guy you should be going to for advice. Why aren't you talking to your mom? Why aren't you talking to your dad? Why aren't you talking to Wally or Barry or John Stewart, like somebody who's been in the trenches? Not Damien.
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you, Rocky. Like, we don't know who this kid is. This kid doesn't know who he is. Um, and I totally agree with you about the secret identity thing too. Like, how can he even have a life? How's that going to screw him up? The argument could be made. It's a bigger mistake what the choice that Bendis made to have Superman reveal his secret identity. That's a bigger
Absolutely.
mistake than aging John up. Like, you talk
Absolutely.
about when was the last time we saw John Kent in normal clothes? When's the last time we saw Clark Kent? You've reduced you've taken away half of the character of Superman.
Yeah.
He's just as heroic. Did we not just talk about what an incredible story we got from G. Willow Wilson in the Superman Red and Blue that felt very Christopher Reeve inspired, where it was this really great story where Clark Kent saved the day. Clark Kent stopped a robbery through nothing more than him showing compassion and empathy
Yes.
for somebody. That is who Superman is. He's not just Superman in the costume. He's
Yeah.
Clark Kent. He's that kid that grew up in the Midwest that has those traditional American values that were instilled in him by Ma and Pa Kent and the reporter searching for the truth and all that. And Bendis just pissed it all away. All that's gone. All
Yeah.
we get now, like, when's the last, have we even seen Clark Kent in a single issue of anything that Philip Kennedy Johnson has written?
No.
No. It's
No.
been all Superman.
And where's the connection to humanity then?
Yeah.
Where's John Kent's connection to humanity going to come from if he doesn't have a secret identity? If he's always flying around above everyone? I mean, there's a reason why the secret identity exists in the Superman mythology, and it's been abandoned now. And now he's just like any other Marvel character where there is no secret identity anymore. It's just, I find it appalling. I find it appalling. And yeah. Whatever.
Yeah,
I could rant.
I agree with you. It's reductive. It harms the character of John Kent because he has nothing else to bounce off of or learn from or grow from. And it's also reductive to Lois because have we seen Lois do any reporter stuff? No, she's just been window dressing, standing around.
That's exactly right.
We did get a cool scene with her firing off a Kryptonian gun, but still, that's not Lois's world. That's not where she should be. She's been reduced to this kind of pale sidekick to Superman and John Kent instead of out there having her own agency and searching for a story and going on her own adventures. So, it's as much as I've been liking some of the stuff Philip Kennedy Johnson has done, and it's been getting better until Superman gets his identity back, his secret identity back, his Clark Kent identity back. I feel like we're in for a rough ride. And this is just a symptom of that.
Yeah.
We're getting this character of John Kent who can by the very nature of the situation he's being put in, without having a chance to grow up and learn how to use his powers and learn how to be, a mature, normal person. He didn't get that chance. All of a sudden, you've turned him into just John Kent, son of Kal-el. That's all he is. It's one dimension. It's one flavor. It's one channel. There's no layers. It's just this, like you said, generic. Not interesting.
Exactly. And where's the supporting cast? What about new? Like, I realize it's only the first issue, but I want him to have a supporting cast, like even a potential love interest or something, and a love interest that.
How can he have a love interest? That would be putting that person at tremendous risk because he doesn't have a secret identity.
Yeah.
He can't have a life.
Yeah.
Like, it makes no sense. So what I'm worried about is, even as talented as a writer as Tom Taylor is, any kind of layers or like complications or drama he brings to the story are going to feel tacked on. They're not going to feel organic. I really don't know where he can go with this story. So it's up to him. And I don't want to say like, like I'm some person that he's got to impress or whatever, but it's sort of up to him to prove me wrong, and I don't know. This feels like a generic first issue. It wasn't terrible. There were some interesting things that happened here, but I don't hold Tom Taylor. It's so interesting because he was so excited when this got announced, right? I'm finally writing Superman. And as much as I, love Tom, I've met him several times. I wanted to say, but you're not really writing Superman, because Superman is Kal-el, number one. And number two, in order to write Superman, you need to be able to write Clark Kent, and there is no Clark Kent anymore. So as excited as he is, and I'm excited for him, in my mind, this isn't really writing Superman. So I feel bad for the position that he's in because he really wasn't set up. Superman is his favorite character. It's Tom Taylor's favorite character. Kal-el is Tom Taylor's favorite character. And he's always dreamed of writing him. And I would love to read a true, like, let's go back and instead of having Bendis come on to Superman at that point in time, have Tom Taylor come on. Yeah. Can we retcon that?
Do you know what really pissed me off? There was a line in here that John Kent said, and I have it up on the screen. John Kent actually says, "And how would I be someone else? I'm one of the most recognizable people on the planet." And I feel like saying, John, you idiot, talk to your mother, who was an idiot for a long time because she never, your dad wore glasses for his whole goddamn life, and nobody knew he was Superman. How can I be someone else? Are you retarded, John? I mean, you got technology, you could holograph, there's all kinds of ways you could have a secret identity. You've never contemplated that? You never thought about that? Come on, man. Like, this is nonsense to me. I can't emphasize enough how much more interested I would be in this story if he had a secret identity. He's a young kid. Doesn't he want to get laid? I mean, let's put it all on the table here. Doesn't he want to have relationships? Doesn't he want to have a secret identity? Even Damien said to him, you need to find a way to not be you. Yep. And Damien nailed it, and he does. And so that's what he should be doing. I really, really hope Tom Taylor is going to be giving him a secret identity of some kind, because I think he needs to do that. Because, I mean, look, his father benefited from being Clark Kent for years. That's how he got in touch with humanity. And if he's going to deprive that from his son, what's John Kent's connection to humanity when it's only been Damien and then Ultraman for 7 years in a volcano? I mean, I'm sorry, but we just can't escape this. It's the two elephants in the room that have to be addressed. Yeah, God, I don't know.
Yeah, so ultimately I was sort of disappointed. Thought it could have been more. I mean, there are some good moments here, both artistically and narratively. So I'm certainly not giving up on it yet. Like you said, Rocky, Tom Taylor has earned the chance for
yes.
at least 3 or 4 issues. So I guess we'll see where it goes. All right. Well, that does it, everybody. Part 2, just as long as part 1, 18 issues in the can. Hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget about the auction coming up this Sunday. If you are going to be attending Terrificon, love to meet you. I'll be wandering around the show. So just look for me, come up, say hi. Don't be shy. Our buddy Dark Knight Nation, Trevor, will be there tabling as well with his comic, which Area 51, the Helix Project, the 3rd issue, its campaign just went live on Kickstarter today as we're recording this. So as you're listening to it, it's already live. Go give it a look. Just do a search for Area 51, the Helix Project on Kickstarter, and you can find it there. It's definitely worth your time. Don't know if I have, don't really have any other episodes coming out because I'm going to be busy traveling and whatnot. So auction is taking up a lot of my time, but obviously we'll still have the regular New Comics Wednesday episode coming out. So anything you want to plug, Rocky? You have coming out?
Yeah, I am going to be reviewing the 2nd issue of the Area 51, the Helix Project. I'll be doing that this week, which is, of course, Trevor Lenkevich's Trevor's Dark Knight Nation's comic book that Kickstarter for number 3 is this open this week. So everybody should support that because he's well on his way of being funded. So I'll be reviewing that. And I'm also going to be I've put together a video of a review of the story of Infinite Frontier, from Death Metal to What We Know to Infinite Frontier. I'm just doing a synopsis, putting together all the pieces of Infinite Frontier, and I'll be a speculation video. So that'll be coming out in the next week as well. So
fantastic. So, all right, everybody, be sure, if you're listening to us on the podcast, you head over to the Comic Boom YouTube channel and subscribe. Also ring that notification bell so you know when Rocky has new videos coming out. Also be sure to give this video a like. If you're checking us out on YouTube, be sure you subscribe to the Comic Source podcast. We're available on all platforms, or just use your podcast app on your smart device and do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe that way. So once again, we really appreciate the support and for everybody taking the time to join us, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you later.